Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith along with Ivan Ozerets.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you for checking in. Episode 220. We're going to talk to a longtime associate, Mike Custer, who 40 years. And we talk periodically on the phone. And I said, we should just connect as a podcast because we have a lot of interesting conversations. I first met Mike. He went to the program I ran for tennis teachers. Very good player, very accomplished player. Like to think he had a really good start. He spent the time with us, and then he worked for the legendary Dennis Van der Meer. But he's been teaching tennis ever since. So it goes back again 40 years. So let me give him a shout. From Connecticut, currently living in Orlando. Been there over 20 years. Tennis.
Hello?
Mike.
Hey, Steve. How are you?
Steve and Ivan, and thanks for being a guest on our podcast.
Hello, Mike.
Oh, no problems. Hey, Ivan, thanks for having me on. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, as I signed in, I told the listeners that you and I periodically have long chats about tennis, and we've said for a long time we need to have one of those chats be hooked up, record, push play, and have it become a podcast. Before we came on there, we talked about the one and only Jimmy Rogers from Winnipeg, Manitoba. He was on our podcast, and he made it sound like you're a little better than Rod Laver, but he did sing your praises on being such an accomplished player, which you were. How did you get so good? Started in Connecticut. Tell us about your beginning in tennis.
Well, first of all, I don't know how good I am, but I appreciate the thoughts, and Jimmy's a wonderful guy. I started pretty young. It got more into it probably when I was about 12 or 13. And a story you might appreciate about trying to keep someone motivated. I have two older brothers, and my dad knew we might fade and lose interest. So I remember one summer, he told all of us that he would, and that's back in the day, and what we're talking early 70s, that he would give us each one shot a summer to play him a match, and if we beat him, he'd pay us $100. So that was a pretty good way to motivate. I stuck with it, and just to bore the listeners, for the first year I gave it a whirl, I lost in straight sets. Next year, split sets, and then I believe when I was 14 and a half, I actually won. So that was a big milestone, and that kind of probably got me hooked on wanting to improve and keep on it. So hats off to him for that.
That was pretty clever of your dad to have done that. Arthur Ashe, not verbatim, but 3 years to be a fair player, 5 years to be a good player, 10 years to be a great player.
Yeah, I'd say that sounds about right. As long as you put the deliberate practice in, as they say, no doubt about it. And so then, to get back on, I did play high school tennis, and I was fortunate to play some doubles with my best friend, Chris Bozer, and ended up winning the state doubles title, which obviously kept me motivated as well. So that was pretty cool.
Did you play other sports? I know you're long and lean. Did you play basketball?
Yeah, I played a little bit of everything. It helped having two older brothers. Played basketball, baseball, a little soccer, played a little goalie, or goalkeeper, I guess they would say, in high school as well. So, I've been around a whole slew of different sports, so that definitely helped.
And how did tennis become the sport?
That's probably good. Well, I guess at a certain point, about 14 or 15, I really locked in and realized it's a skill sport. And as Anders Ericsson even talks about in some of his books, that at some point, all the folks that excel in whatever field they're in, at some point they have a little epiphany where you've got to lock in and really take it seriously and put the hours in. So I kind of had that, I guess, at about 15 or so. And, just loved the sport, just always loved, probably watching the folks back in the 70s, as the Connors, the Borg and all that. Always tried to have the long hair like Borg and that bit. But no, just always loved the game for obvious reasons,
For our listeners, Anders Ericsson, the late Anders Ericsson, wrote the book Peak. Mm-hmm. One of our previous guests, Dom Lausick, who has a PhD, studied under Professor Erickson.
Yes, I remember you telling me that. Yes, I'm going to have to revisit that one.
With when you talked to me about his book recently, I think really he Malcolm Gladwell, I think, and then later Daniel Coyle. Malcolm Gladwell with the book Outliers, and then Daniel Coyle with the Talent Code.
Yes,
I think they certainly got a lot of credit for the 10,000 hour rule, the Milan, but it really goes back to Erickson. How about your tennis instruction? You hit the ball well. You played well. How did you learn how to play?
Well, I'd have to say, Stu, pretty much self-taught. It's funny you mention that because I would say when I was at Tyler, I probably learned more in the year and a half, 2 years there. As you know, when I was there, I broke my wrist. That's all another story. But I probably learned more in those 2 years than the whole time I ever played tennis. As I've heard Yvonne say in the past, I probably realized how little I really knew. So it just pretty much went on raw, a little bit of talent and just a bit of hard work, but I wouldn't say smart work. I didn't really know the ins and outs. And so I probably accelerated my growth in playing and teaching, obviously, in 2 years more than, the last 15 or whatnot it was. So, yeah. And it continues, as you know, it's a never ending journey. But
you played really good doubles, serving going forward. For our listeners, there's always politics. When I was at Tyler Junior College 10 years, I was there with 3 different coaches. And at one point, certainly it's unfortunate, but people were deprived of academic freedom. It was actually became school policy that if you were on the team, you couldn't be in the program that we called tennis tech.
And vice versa, right? If you were in the program, you couldn't play on the team.
No, exactly. And then there's players like yourself that, you and I have talked about that many times. I remember the one player, DK Pearson.
DK Pearson,
Pearson from
Illinois, I think, right?
Illinois. Then he went to school in Iowa, but he was there for 2 years, and he
excellent player.
Quick story. I said, well, you can go up in the 4 courts up on the hill and just practice all day and really rebuild your game. And when you leave here after 2 years, you have 3 years of eligibility, which he did. And then it worked out where the coach who did not let him have an opportunity to play, he had gone on to an NAI school, and that's what DK Pearson did. And I remember the names. He a player who was on scholarship when he was there, Peter Dixon.
Okay.
DK beat him in the Nationals 3-3. And but then the side story was that then later, Peter Dixon, he enrolled in the tennis tech program and took classes. But no, there was a time where there were several of you that were, and that was unfortunate because that was a very competitive program. They won national titles, but there was actually, like you and a few others, there was players on campus that could have cracked the lineup. Yeah.
No, we had some nice players in the program. I remember, not to go on a tangent, but I remember Mike Robinson was a pretty solid player. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, from San Antonio.
Yeah.
No, I remember one time with the team left and the coach made the mistake of asking me if we could have a match of players from our program playing against his second 6. There was the players who didn't travel, and it was we didn't lose a match.
That's great. Yeah.
But I said before we got on air, or before you were on air, that like to think that you had a really good base because you spent that time with us, and then you went to Van der Meer. What was it like working for Van der Meer?
Oh, learned a lot there, with his, his skills working with, large crowds. Just was amazing. Just his command of groups of people, just off the charts, as you well know. Just learned a lot with that and the progressions and whatnot. Oh my gosh. There's just so much just interacting with people. No, I learned a lot there. That was a lot of fun. It was a little different, as you know, some of the technical stuff, but no, he was really a master of progressions and keeping things moving along with groups for sure. My goodness.
No, we've addressed that in the podcast when he would visit, he came every year to Tyler, Texas.
Uh-huh.
And, for example, Braden was one who was, he understood, okay, you're going to close the racket face in the bottom part of the swing,
Yep.
or not have the racket on edge, or use the left hand more on you when you turn on the overhead. The letter J toss. There's just so many things, but really in the end, you'd have to be picky because the fundamentals there was far more similarities than there were differences.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it. And, I give him a lot of credit in that, he had a good theory in trying to standardize, at least get, have everyone on the same page at least. Hopefully you could make whatever the info's going out as quality as you can. But if you have a whole slew of pros, at least they're not all teaching something different on every court, a different theory. Because ultimately the student pays,
Yeah, no, there should be continuity. I mean, granted, there's going to be the style of the teacher, the personality. Right?
Sure.
But we always talk about the court's a rectangle, and the water runs uphill, not downhill. With that point, let's. Why don't you read off I think we have 7-8 words here, and we have some of your notes. Why don't you go like the first one, logic? Read the definition, Ivan, and then we'll talk about it.
All right. Logic is a system of principles that uses reason to determine if a conclusion is true or untrue.
I think you should read that one more time.
Logic is a system of principles that uses reason to determine if a conclusion is true or untrue.
Yeah, Mike, why don't you expand upon that? I think that is lacking in our world of tennis teaching.
Well, I wanted to say, Steve, that was something I sent you guys a little off the cuff. If you didn't mind, Steve, I was going to ask you just a thought, if you don't mind. I'm not trying to go off track. I'm not trying to go off track, but if somebody were to ask you, what exactly, if you could sum it up, why do you teach the fundamentals that you teach? What do you base that on?
Well, we go back to that one word, logic. Results. I mean, we always go, to really get people's attention, especially right now with racquetball. I think both sports should be taught the same. Obviously, there's some differences, not that many. Yeah, it's proven day after day. If you can play tennis, you can play pickleball. But logic. And I think how you tell people, you got to fix the hole in your boat before you put the sail up.
Well, that's exactly it. And I mean, again, I know that list I sent you, all those words pretty much are about the same deal. But I'll never forget at Tyler, one of the first things you mentioned was anything we're going to go over when you're teaching, you need to be able to base it on rationale. It's not, basic physics aren't really up for opinion. And that's what kind of, to go to another thought is, why do you think there isn't more, universal acceptance in just sound info on how to teach? Well, why is there such a roadblock from pro to pro on that? I mean, I'm assuming it comes down to ego and whatnot, or, but what do you think about that? Why, if it's, if there's that much good info, I mean, all the wonderful content that you've, accumulated that's out there for free, and it really is, back to that list you were kind of reading off, it's irrefutable. I mean, you've had so many unbelievable results that I know you don't tout enough. But again, back to the question, why isn't that more universally just accepted that, technique is technique?
Let's go with the young guy. What do you think, Ivan?
I love
both of you and I were teaching tennis long before Ivan was born.
Right.
I think a short and sweet answer would be ego, and coaches teach the way they were taught. And if you've taught many students one way, ego gets in the way to admit I was wrong, and to go to every other student that you teach thereafter, and the ones that come back and say, hey, I made a mistake. I didn't know. I was taught wrong. I've been teaching you wrong. Maybe it's 1 year, maybe 5 years, 10 years. This is the right way. This is more logical. It's a hard pill to swallow.
I think ego and greed. I think we could come to greed. How can I make money?
Yep.
How can I do this without investing money in my own skill set? Then how can I make money fast? Yeah. We make, as you know, we make these narrated slow motion analysis tapes, and the macho male ego, over time, we've had much more success with female tennis teachers looking at the videos we make and go, okay, I get it. But we haven't had as much success with the male, the macho male ego.
Yeah, that is an interesting thought. Yeah, I think that is basically what it comes down to. But I would say in life in general, it's never too late to do the right thing. As you've said about Vic, if you know of a better way, use it, do it, learn and move on it, but I know that's a tough deal with folks. They don't want to have to admit to maybe what they didn't know in the past, but my gosh, in the end, if teaching pros can't even agree on sound technique, then the students are really the ones that get hung out to dry. And for me, that's what's painful to watch. When I watch, even something like cardio tennis, people are just running around slapping balls around. I mean, they're just literally building bad myelin. And it's just, I don't know if it's worse to have no info or to drive home bad info, which I'm pretty sure it's the driving home the bad info. But yeah, that is so painful to watch. I know you see it all around the world, but
well, let's go back. Let's go to your point on no information versus misinformation.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you're better off with no lessons. Just go hit the backboard.
Yeah.
And granted, the young boys, especially with a 2-ounce ball, they try to knock the wall over. But
right.
At least, if you hit the ball straight, it's going to come back straight. And you get it. You do get the reps. I think the internet is another factor.
Oh my
internet
God.
started in 1989, but Mike, you mentioned Vic's first name, but Vic Braden. I think people are tuning in for the first time.
Right.
We probably don't. Yeah. There's a 220 podcasts. I don't think we've had one podcast where his name's not mentioned. With he said so much bad information is going out so fast.
Oh.
But I think it's so easy to become a tennis teacher. And now most of the tennis teachers, over half in this country, are not certified.
Right.
And there's still students at Ferris State and Methodist College. The USTA University, to my knowledge, they haven't knocked it out of the park. Where there's more programs around the country. I mean, there's a master's program at the University of Florida. So if you dig, there's even some colleges. Like Brown University was, I think, the first where you could be very creative and create your own curriculum.
Right.
But I mean, just going way back to where you and I connected, where basically 2 years we studied tennis together, and I think now people think it's at their fingertips. I do think. I think on the flip side, I mean, I can't change a light bulb, but if somebody wants to build a deck in their backyard, you can go to YouTube and get the directions. I think there's too many screws loose when it comes to building a tennis game, though. On the internet.
Steve, think about it. I mean, obviously I'm biased, but all of the wonderful content that you have put out, and it's for free, and it's just as good information as I know Yvonne would attest to as you can get. There's no floundering around and searching. It's just what it is, and you've accumulated. Obviously, you always get credit the pillars, but my God, it's all out there, and it's a wonderful thing that YouTube has that. But how many people are informed enough to check it out and know what's good and bad? And that's, to me, going off on another little bit of a tangent. If you think about it, if somebody just spent literally 6 months just learning some good solid info, grips, swing paths, and whatnot, you save 50 years of misery of not having a clue what you're doing and not enjoying playing. So to me,
quitting the game.
Or even worse, quitting and taking the pickleball, whatever you want to call it. People get, if you think about it, why do people quit? Well, they're getting no good info and they see no progress. And, this sport's hard enough with good info. But if you're, it's like trying to do a puzzle in the dark. I mean, if you have no clue what you're even trying to do, how much fun it is. I'm going to throw a quick question to Yvonne, if you don't mind. If Yvonne took up playing the violin tomorrow, how much fun would it be his first day out? He can't play. He's not going to sign up to try to go play a concert his first day, or, you have to have enough skill to make it fun enough to want to continue to pursue it, is how I look at it.
Yeah,
So,
no, I certainly tell people all the time, if you are going to take up piano, you're not ready for the recital after an hour and a half of instruction.
Well, you learn by doing the recitals, Steve. Remember, it's the game. The game base. You just start playing. It should work. Get people there to and no, it's insane. It's like you say too about don't look at the finish. You have to look at the finished product. What you guys are doing. It's like mixing all the ingredients you need for a cake in a bowl. Well, it looks totally different after it's been in the oven for 45 minutes. That's the finished product, and people are judging the ingredients in the bowl when they, catch some of the stuff you guys put online. You have to look at it. It's a process, but the key is making the process fun enough to want to stick with it, so you see progress. But that's how I look at it anyway.
The late Peter Burwash used to say, the personality of the pro, you got to add some pizzazz. You got to make it happen. Here's a comment I shared on our podcast before that I thought this was excellent. Years ago, I saw one of your flyers, and it was for adult tennis.
Mm-hmm.
And it basically part of the script was, you have a course title, then a description, and it was don't plan on playing for the first year, and that was for adult tennis. Could you talk about that for a minute?
I think that would have flown a little better in Russia, don't you think? At the Spartak. No, I mean, it's just, again, it's a cultural thing, and we could narrow it down instead of a year. Let's say it's 6 months. That's nothing in the life of a tennis player, and the whole point of it is to avoid the misery of not being very competent at something at first. You don't try to go and compete and play, and then I know people want to have fun. I get that. Fun is great. Then you have to define fun. But to me, improving is fun. And I think you guys know, once somebody really gets hooked into tennis, they're going to generally stick with it for life if they see improvement and they get the bug. I mean, that's how I see it. Not too many people start tennis, get into it, and see improvement and then quit. They quit because they're, it's bad instruction, or they have no clue what they're trying to do, so they see no progress. So why would anyone stick with it? At 6 months of piano lessons, and I saw zero progress, I'd be a fool to keep playing, wouldn't I?
Yeah.
At some point you have to see some progress, and that to me is the pro's job. Now, obviously, the student has to be committed enough to get the practice into, for the progress to happen. I get that. But it really isn't neuroscience. If you're committed enough and you put in at least some decent practice hours, you're almost guaranteed to see progress, don't you think?
No, for sure. Going back to culture, I remember the first time I looked out the window of an airplane. It was just first time in Japan, plane lands. And on the airfield, there was maybe say 8-10 people. A work crew came in, and they were in a circle doing jumping jacks. They were warming up to begin their work shift. And then to watch adult tennis in Japan, it's very much, and I've used this title many times, train like a junior, and have the adults are welcome to join the junior program. You're just going to train like a junior. But I've done this before, having coached mostly juniors. I'm doing an adult camp, and everybody comes on the court, and I go, okay, just jog a few laps, and the adults
just look at you.
They stare, look at you. It's like jog a few laps. They want to just start right in whacking balls. But I think treat the adults like kids, the kids like adults. And I understand that some adults are maybe playing just once a week or twice. But you're right, though, is that to just take some time and learn how to play. But then, and you've been doing it for so long, most of the people you meet in tennis, it's not adding to their game, it's subtracting to the game. It's like, oh, no, we got to, you just, it's the same thing with a junior. Oh, you've been playing 5 years and their game's a train wreck. It's like, whoa.
Well, yeah. Well, it gets back to the name of the of the program, the GreatBase. If you start out with good info and just get on the right track, you just eliminate so much misery. I mean, I say the most important commodity in life, I think you would both agree, is time.
Yeah.
And when somebody starts off and they have no clue what they're doing, or they're getting bad instruction, you're just multiplying the misery down the road where, I've taught quite a few people that aren't even particularly that coordinated, but if they get some good info and you do the right progressions, they're going to see progress. And that's what keeps people playing. They have to, I know this is a Van der Meer line too, but you have to have the missionary zeal to want to practice. And that brings me to another tangent, Steve, if you don't mind me hopping around.
No, go for it.
Think of any discipline, and I've taught, I'm sure you have too, I've taught professional musicians. In any discipline where someone is really good at it, it's literally 95% practice versus maybe less than even 5% performance. So if you don't love practicing, that's where the whole thing to me starts. You have to love, even shadow swinging, hitting the wall, studying, watching matches. That's a whole nother subject about kids that don't even watch tennis anymore. But, think of any discipline. Think of Simone Biles. Anyone in any discipline. Michael Phelps, swimming. We've seen him in meets in the Olympics. I'd be willing to bet he has spent 97% of his life in a pool practicing, training. It's not the performance, but that's the fun. I get that, performing it and, being in a tournament, that's all great. But that is such a small sliver of what you're doing. You guys agree with that?
Yeah, I think when I hear Michael Phelps, I think of continuity, consistency, having the same coach for year after year after year. We'll say this often is that one bad coach is better than 10 different coaches. Just the way the brain works is that you can't, it's not like Baskin Robbins where what's the flavor of the week? I think I'll go with the coach who's down the road. But I think in adult tennis, a question I want to ask you is, trying to make it like, let's work out right away. You can have a workout, but don't have the workout by ingraining bad habits with ball striking. All the years you taught adults, question I would have for you is, don't you think at times you could even guess what their occupation is?
Oh, yeah. I remember you using the line when you talked about being out at Coda Casa where the engineers and the accountants will tell you how many I'm spending, how much per hit.
Yeah, that was a Vic Braden line, 18 cents a shot. But an engineer, they certainly can overanalyze. One time at Vic's place, speaking about Japan, 1 week a year, there would be 72 people from Japan who would be at the Vic Braden Tennis College. And there obviously was very little verbal communication, but the amount of improvement was amazing. But again, it comes from respect.
It's a cultural thing, sure.
And there's so much respect. And from one country to the next, in Russia, the tennis coach is really respected. Maybe feared too, but
you say feared a little bit, yeah.
But they say, I'll find somebody else. They also, and this is in your notes as well, is they have to understand the game, they respect the sport. It's the degree of difficulty. It's not not to take anything away from lacrosse. To be great at any sport takes great dedication, but
absolutely.
I was at prep school. We all had lacrosse sticks, and we could all go out and cradle and play catch. But that didn't mean we could play big time lacrosse. But a lot of people can't go out and they just can't rally back and forth. Van der Meer used to say that if you can't have anybody have fun until they can at least rally some.
Yeah, and again, that comes back to where you guys talk about. There's a lot of science, but the art is making sure they're having progress. I mean, I'm sure you guys could get virtually anyone in 5-10 minutes to be able to rally back and forth. It might be 5 feet away from the net, but it's up to the pro, to guide them about just pretty much leave your racket at contact and explain them what makes it go. But because that's not something that everyone just gets, but you have to explain it to them. And if you do that, they should almost certainly make some progress. Now, I will say this, when it comes to, I know you guys work with more high-end juniors than that, but really the info should basically be the same. It comes down to what the student wants to do with it and their degree of commitment. And so, but it's not like you give somebody that's a total hack different bad info and versus a higher end player. It's, they still all have to honor the same physics, grips and whatnot should be similar. You know what I mean? It's not like you have to change the whole works. It really does come down to how committed they are to putting the time into, and how athletic, obviously, that helps. But yeah, I don't think you should minimize, as you always talk about. You don't want to dumb it down and act like somebody can't absorb it. So,
no, that's a good point. I'm glad you said that. Say with the service motion, say it could be a man, but say a woman's on a team and she's got her matches upcoming, and she's got a palm up serve. That expression to work within someone's game versus with your game, but at the same time, you want to let her know she's going to have a palm up serve. Who knows? Next thing you know, is she's got some younger children and they're playing tennis. Honesty is the best policy. But to tell people, this is what you really need to do to prevent injury and hit the ball to your the best of your abilities. But yeah, I think another thing too is it's not a mystery to be an advanced player. And I really think it's the difference between a competitive lesson and a recreation lesson. It's just the pace of the lesson. Yeah, the people that are the people are practicing more often, you can progress at a faster rate.
Yep, and obviously, if somebody's in a 4-0 or 3-5 league and they're having fun, that's fine. But they should know that they'll never be able to hit a spin serve with with their grip on number 4 or whatnot. But some people, and that again, that's fine if they can say to themselves, no, I realize I'm limited and I'm okay with that. I'm having fun. And, the pain of trying to learn it properly is more than I want to deal with. And I just want to play and I'm happy with that. You know what? Amen to that. That's fine. They're out there running around, they're having fun. I'm fine with that, as long as they have that self-realization and they're not kidding themselves. The other thing I like to say to a lot of folks is, if your expectations exceed the work you're putting in, then you're just going to have disappointment. You have to be realistic on what it is you're trying to accomplish and what are you putting into it. And that's fine. As long as that matches up, then I'm all good. The quick story, so I've got to give you guys a laugh. There was a lady out at this park when I first got here. I'm out giving a lesson. I keep hearing this clicking sound. I'm like, what in the hell is that weird noise? And it turns out I look down, there's a lady that plays in a league, probably 3-5 league or something. And she hits herself in the shin every time she serves. So instead of tweaking her serve, she wears a soccer shin guard when she plays. Yeah,
crazy. I've seen that just at least, not that many times, but at least one other time I've seen that. Wow.
I had never seen that. And I mean, I don't even know where you go with that, but that was pretty interesting. Interesting how the brain works. Instead of changing what's going on, let's just put a guard on. But I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway,
off of that, when you use the verb clicking, Joe Denoffer, on court, off court. Yeah, I was out in Dallas doing a tennis project with Dave Anderson, and Joe Denoffer comes over, and I have a young junior from Germany, young junior from Russia, and they both can hit the ball well. And question was, when are you going to let them loosen up? They look mechanical. But Joe has I think listeners should go to his website, because it's one-stop shop. He has every teaching aid under the sun. But one is the clicker, and you put it on your wrist, and if you break your wrist and you hear the clicking sound, it means your forehand, you're hitting it the right way. But I told people, no, you need to buy that teaching aid, and if you don't hear the click, you're hitting your forehand efficiently.
You're probably doing it right. Yeah. You got a lot of items.
Wrist is fixed, and then you're releasing from the elbow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, I was going to ask. Well, that's that on court, off court, I guess, is his website. But and there are a lot of items in that are, I guess, reasonable. But I was going to say, how many players have you and Ivan known in your careers that have been good tennis players that are very wristy?
Now, Vic Braden is at war with the wrist. We did a short post the other day, an Instagram post where it's from Vic Braden. You hit the ball, and once you get the contact, you just immediately bring your racket backwards. You can actually rally with no follow through. The follow through is that insurance plan to have a tracking motion. But I think with say Nadal, who played with such a light racket, and you could hear all the whippy and racket hit speed. You hear all these mumbo jumbo, but you really need to slow it down and show people this is what he did. This is how he basically squared the racket out at the hit. This is how he imparted topspin. It was not. He wasn't violating physical laws.
No, well, you really can't do it. But that's one thing I tell everyone when I first start working with them is, it may sound a little weird or harsh, but I always let them know, look, I'm going to tell you right off the top, if you're using a lot of wrist action, I'm not going to be able to help you. You have to accept this is a sport where that has to pretty much be fixed. And obviously at the higher level, after the ball's long gone and they're following through up over their shoulder and whatnot, because they're swinging so fast, that's another story. But now, at impact, as you well know, and thereafter, if you're flopping around, you might get one or two shots at going, but you're better off to take a racket ball at that point. But
when you use the word fixed, if it's broken, don't broke it. Don't fix it if it's not broken. But this is for Ivan, young people. So Mike and I were on this college campus, and we had the corner of one building. And so we had an office, a stringing room, and 2 classrooms. And the one classroom had these really large cupboards, and we had it organized where we had like zero budget, so little money. But I'd have 5 students say, hey, write and have this sent to your apartment, bring it in. So we would get at least 5 brochures from every new tennis camp that would be in Tennis Magazine, World Tennis as well. And Tennis Magazine was like a small telephone book. So you have to be careful today. A lot of people don't know how thick a telephone book. I mean, it could just be 3 inches thick. And then, so what we did is on a rainy day, we had classes where we covered, the marketing of tennis, but we had all these brochures to people to look through. People had to create their own brochures. But there were so many ads. And I think now it's more, and obviously you just think about all the conversations you've had with tennis students that have talked to other tennis teachers. And basically a theme throughout almost every ad for a tennis camp or resort would be, we'll work with what you already have. Even we'll refine your game. We won't make changes. God. And it's like, no, if you're taking the racket low, you need to take the racket up high. But at the same time, you didn't need to make a dissertation on it. Van der Meer was great at that, where, he wanted to have somebody have a loop on the forehand, have some racket at speed. You would say, okay, let's see your volley. Okay, now let's move back to the middle of the court. Let's work on your drop shot. Now, so you have disguise, just turn like you're going to hit a volley or a drop shot, and then from there, just hit your forehand. He wouldn't say, hey, you're taking the racket low. But at the same time, he used video, and he had the knowledge to do that. But it was like, let's keep this train moving and not get stuck in the mud where you can get teched out. But I think what happens with the internet today is people are trying to put their own slant on it. It's like, this is the way I do it. This is my magic.
The secret sauce, but there isn't any. That's as you know, Steve. That's what's so crazy. It's like, that's why I send you those as a laugh once in a while. It's like it's almost hard to believe that's really out there, that someone's actually putting out there, and that people are consuming it. And it's like it's like a farmer poisoning their own crops. I mean, these are going to be the future. It's just crazy. Just one other thought. Just about in general in tennis, how much of good tennis is element of surprise versus just good solid executing? I'm throwing that out there seriously, Steve. Of all the tennis you watch in Ivan, how much really in solid tennis match play is about element of surprise, in your opinion?
So many answers for that. I think in the highest level of football, you're only going to see the flea flicker once in a while.
No, but even Djokovic, when he played Federer in their primes, they've played each other 40 times. They've watched each other on film a zillion times. Do you really think that it's a lot of element of surprise that's going to separate who wins and loses? Yeah,
I saw some film yesterday of Alcaraz and Federer practicing, and good footwork, pretty basic fundamentals. but people are selling the wow factor.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, when someone's serving, they're going to mix up that. But I mean, generally speaking, it's who executes some solid basics more consistently than the other guy, and it may come down to a few points if it gets on a tie break. But but for people to talk about like their secret sauce and that, I mean, it's like, come on. But anyway, one other thought to you, if you don't mind me throwing out some weirdness to you.
Ivan's from Southern California, so we can handle weird.
Oh, he's a pretty weird. Well, here's a quick thought for you. And I know there can be a lot of here, so I just want you to just think about it, or just throw out what you'd like. What characteristics do you feel all effective coaches have in various disciplines? Now, obviously, the number one thing is they have to have knowledge. They have to really understand what they're doing. But after that, what would you say is the main factor that makes a coach, teacher effective?
Well, Ivan, you can think about that. Effective coaching. It's a great question. Let's come back to Southern Cal for a minute. But the United States, Ivan, it's on a southwestern slope, and everything loose rolls to California. California, it's a granola state. It's filled with nuts, fruits, and flakes.
Well, no, but I mean, seriously, Steve, what do you think? I mean, I think of someone like John Wooden, and I've thought about this myself, that if you really had to ponder, what would you come up with?
Go, Ivan, baby.
You do it yourself. Good, Ivan.
I would say compassion.
I'd go with that. I got another one, Steve. How about you?
Empathy. It's pretty much a ditto answer, but you got to care about the other person. It can't just be the cash register. It can't just be Miller Lite. It can't just be it's just another lesson. Like, this is an opportunity to help this person.
Yeah.
Tennis is a vehicle for life. So, hey, if I can really help this individual teach tennis better, or this kid, this adult hit the ball better.
I totally agree with both those thoughts, and it may be a strange question the way I phrase it, but think of it this way too. Think of Bobby Knight, John Wooden, whoever that have been successful. How about Roberts Landorf or whatever?
Yeah.
To me, and Steve, you do it yourself. I know you do. Is insistence of certain things be done a certain way. There may be another word, but you insist things are done properly, or you can call it attention to detail, whatever you want to call it, but it can't be loosey-goosey, half-baked. I mean, if you know of a coach in any sport, and I totally agree with you guys about the empathy, certainly you have to care about your students. Dude, we've talked about that. I think everything starts with you've got to care.
Yeah.
But really, if you have the right info and you drive it home with whoever, that to me is where you're going to see the progress. If it's loosey-goosey, as you like to say, the Wild West, just anything goes, I'm pretty sure that didn't fly with John Wooden. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. I'm glad you bring these points up.
For structure, whatever you want to call it,
Yeah, we had a gal this summer who did an internship with us. She sent me a text. She was we had her as a guest on our podcast, and she's studying coaching now. She's reading about Lombardi, and if you let it slide, you'll have an avalanche. And what's very, very difficult, you certainly could talk about that with, someone signs up for a tennis lesson or a tennis clinic, and it's like, oh boy, you just watch them hit a few serves, and say if it's someone with on an adult tennis team and they got a match on the weekend, whoa, and or say with someone they're pretty deep into playing, and say they're already through the 12s or in the 14s, and they want to play college tennis, and it's like, you're just like, oh no, here we go again. And so it's everybody has problems, for example, when it comes to ball striking, but then it's how old is that problem?
Well, exactly. Well, and back to the structure, like you said too, Steve, I know you have people fill out, these sheets, their goals and whatnot. I mean, you want them to be able to nail it down at that higher level. But I like a quote from Colin Powell out of a book he wrote where, he was talking about education in a classroom. And then, the number one thing he came down with that you have to have for anything to take place is there's got to be structure and discipline. If you just think of a general classroom, like an 8th grade classroom, if people are screwing around, jumping around, throwing things around, there's no order. And of course, it's got to, you don't have to be a total taskmaster, but it's so true, though. There has to at least be some sort of structure for there to be any accomplishment, in my opinion, on that. That's where I guess the art comes in. You don't have to be screaming at people and being out of line. But Steve, when you're running your situation, there's not a lot of loosey-goosey. I could ask you, Ivan, would you describe Steve on court as a lot of loosey-goosey, half-baked action happening?
Oh yeah, a lot of clown work, circus action.
Yeah,
very
exactly.
unserious, a lot of laughing.
I was teaching both the backfire and the tweener to a 6-year-old and to an intern the other day. Go ahead.
I got no problem with that. You got to have a little fun too. But no, you know what I mean. There has to be a little attention to detail for anything to really take place. But that's just how I look at it.
Well, one, you have to be able to hit a tweener, and you got to sometimes emergency shot, and you have to be able to hit the backfire. Can you recall the title of Paul's book?
Steve, you're kidding me with my memory, but I could certainly Google it for you, or Ivanka. Yeah, but no, I remember. I think he wrote a book actually with his wife, and I saw them interviewed, and I don't know the name of it right off the top of my head, but I remember I thought, that pretty, because the interviewer was asked him about one takeaway, and I know he has the military background, and I know there's not a whole lot of loosey-goosey when you're going through boot camp, but no, you have to have at least some discipline structure, or everything is just going to be half-baked.
One shout-out to this, he has a background with junior college. I spent 25 years, 10 and 15, on junior college campuses. I remember reading this, with chaos, you have no freedom. With structure, you have freedom. That's just kind of interesting. But, the words that you wrote down, they're instead of going through them each at one time, just rattle off all 7, Ivan. They're as you said, Mike, they're all the same, really all the same thing.
Yep.
Yeah, we got logic, fact, truth, objective, rationale, inarguable, irrefutable. Yeah,
the word, inarguable with Braden, we always say, if you know this, and you have to really know some information to back it up, and again, for the 100th time on this podcast, the dimensions of the court and physical laws dictate stroke production, no coach's opinion or any unique theory. So if you know the dimensions of the court and you know physical laws, you're going to understand, okay, what are the variables for topspin? You're going to have the intellectual curiosity. Then you're not going to be telling people, roll your racket over the top of the ball, turn the racket instantly at the impact point, like you're turning a doorknob.
Oh, well, wait a minute, Steve. You guys aren't teaching that turn the doorknob deal? No, I mean, Steve, seriously, that's what I mean about that. If tennis pros, if coaches can't agree on just facts, what hope does a student have that has no clue, that's trying to rely on this guy's or gal's guidance?
I think is Rocky one. Are you Rocky's coach, Mick? Are you a pretender or are you a contender? I mean, really, overall, you could expand upon this. In junior tennis, for sure, tennis teaching pros, they don't want to deal with beginners. How about for you? What would you say on the adult side? Do you think that most adult tennis teachers, coaches, thrive on teaching adult beginners?
No, because most pros want to have some hotshot young junior to be able to say they're doing whatever. But to me, Steve, and I know you don't toot your own horn on this, but if you really think about it, how many people out there could really show how many people they've taught or really worked with from scratch or had to start from scratch with somebody that's got a mucked up game and have really gone on to show, really tangible results? And I do want to bet there aren't a whole lot of folks out there that have done that more successfully than yourself. And I'm not blowing smoke, as you know. I mean, that's just another factual thing, like that list I sent. I mean, that, stats are stats. You could just look at it, even from Tyler. You talk about Clayton Stanley and just a whole slew of people. People want to grab the person, on third base and that whole deal. But it takes, to me, a lot more skill to, get someone to really, really learn it from the get-go. And I've proven that myself by working with people that, one, are beginners and are very unathletic. So that's how you know it works. The only variable to me that really comes down to is their commitment to getting the practice reps in, and and studying it to whatever degree you want. I understand a 37-year-old woman that's not very athletic is not going to be shooting for the same goals as a 14-year-old kid that's wanting to play college ball and maybe try to get into the pro ranks. I get that, but the information is still the same. It's just how much they want to dig in and put the time in. I get that. That's the art of it, I guess, if you want to call it that thing. Everyone's different, but it's not like you dumb it down so much for someone that you're not giving them good info.
No, you make so much sense. So for our listeners to back up a little bit, Mike used a phrase that the first I heard was from Dennis Van der Meer, is don't muck it up. Don't be a muck up.
Yeah.
And Yvonne doesn't have to edit that out. So there's.
I'm sure that's where I got it. Probably hearing him.
Yeah, for sure. I think one thing that I'm just baffled by is too many times in tennis teaching, tennis coaching, coaches don't have a coaching tree. Like, who taught you how to teach tennis? And I think that's one of the signs of the time. Well, Internet 101, and now you can take all these classes.
Right.
So you can actually sit at your computer with moving your fingertips and I've always said that you're much better off to go watch someone teach instead of go to a conference for 3 or 4 days, which I've done a ton of in years gone by.
Yeah.
And I've been on the side where you're speaking, but just, okay, I'm going to go listen to this person speak and that person speak. And there's a lot of positives in that, but I think it's much better to find someone you just know that they've truly had success. And I would think you have to find people that have taken someone who's a beginner and you have to be in one place for a long period of time. I know when we talked about one of our first students who became competitive on the Tyler Junior College campus, first guinea pig, Clayton Stanley. Mm-hmm. When I showed up at age 26, I had been trained by Van der Meer, Van Horn, and Braden. But at 20, thanks. But at 26, you haven't trained anybody. You're too young.
Right.
I mean,
sure.
But I think the consumer needs to be, and I think they have become wiser to, like, say, I'm not going to just sign my kid up for an academy. And if people do their homework, there's not much of a retention rate from one academy to the next. People just bop and shop.
Build, shop and bop, right? But what you did was so wise in your, at 25, 26, to go around, like you said, in your van and just pull up or ask permission to watch some of the better people teach. Yeah, I think about that all the time. If I were starting up tennis right now, just as a player, if I could find who was supposed to be a really competent teaching pro and just sit by the court for free and watch them give lessons and take notes, you could learn, a whole lot that way. But again, you'd have to find who knows what they're doing. And here we're back to consumer knowledge.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because tennis teachers should tell their students that we have an open door policy and people can come in and watch our lessons.
Yeah. And
I would encourage people to teach tennis, come in and just sit on the parents for the juniors or even for adults. You're free to come and, sit on the court. And it is a student's private lesson, so it's one-on-one. But if you just come in and be the silent, passive observer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have to throw this in with pat on the back for Yvonne being like Rafael Nadal. He starts his day off, he takes a cold shower. So I was saying, for 2 years I took a lot of cold showers. I lived in a van, but the first year I lived in a van, I went from tournament to tournament. I was told that you have to be able to play a little bit to teach a little bit. So, but the second year I did do that. I went all over watching people teach.
Because, I know you did.
Because I don't think that. It's like going to a movie. It's like, I want to see the movie. I don't want somebody to tell me, it's too lousy a movie to go to. But I can remember my son playing college tennis. I'd go, okay, I'd watch the doubles, watch the first 4 games of the singles, and then I would go on the other side of the stadium and watch. This is at Florida State, and watch the clinic, watch the junior development program.
Right.
Once you've seen the first 4 games, you got a pretty good idea what's going to happen in the match.
Right.
But, I come back, because a match can be 3 hours. But no, you definitely, and you can learn from everybody. you can learn from everybody. Even someone who doesn't really have a knowledge base, but there's going to be something if you can sit, because it's both an art and a science. So the science is the knowledge, and the art, the communication. Just
absolutely, yes. And everyone's wired differently with their their personality type and whatnot. I was going to have to brain type me at some point, but no. If you think about it too, Steve, look back in the days of even like a Michelangelo or a Leonardo da Vinci. The word apprentice. All of these guys in their youth had to sit and watch or help work with an older master and observe. I mean, what a novel thought, If you're able to do that, as you did by going and watching some of the best people give lessons, I mean, it's just, to me, it should be common sense, but as you know, it's not. There isn't a whole lot of common anymore with that. And having said all that, Steve, one thought I needed to do a shout out that even though I've never met Andy or Dave Anderson, every time you have those guys on, I can just kindred spirits on how they approach it. And I am one of the geeks that has actually listened to and or watched every podcast.
All right.
So, well, since it's my sliver of some tennis sanity, trust me when I tell you that.
Sanity.
I have told you that so many times, and I mean it. So,
well, we've been talking about, certainly I always say, hey, our podcast, Amateur Hours, what we have upcoming is Andy and Dave, the three of us will, and Yvonne's the brains, he gets this thing organized. But just to take a topic and just address that one topic. I know you said just our podcast last week you enjoyed, where we went back. Braden passed away 10 years ago, and to have people really understand Vic's contributions to tennis, because I think
that's a great idea, because I so enjoy just hearing intelligent tennis talk, and and I know it's tough. I know there's all this crap on YouTube, but even if somehow, and I know there's all these rights to who can show what and all that good stuff, but God, that's another topic about whenever I listen to the commentary on a match, not to beat up on anyone, which I won't, but how wonderful would it be to have you or somebody watch Djokovic or whoever and just explain, why is Djokovic's forehand just a smidge more sound than Coco Gauff's? Or whoever. You just never hear anyone talk about, why is that person so successful? Yes, there can be 1,000 reasons. I get that. But don't we think everything comes down to strokes? You pretty much are your strokes. I agree, yes, athleticism, agility, mental toughness, all that stuff is involved. But really, at the end of the day, it's who has superior ball control is how I think of it. What do you guys think?
Well, TV, let's go with that. With Robert Lansdorf, we played an excerpt from a podcast, a tribute to Robert. Mm-hmm. And actually, Lindsay Davenport, Tracy Austin, or two people are on TV. He goes, I'm going to follow a commentator to a movie and sit behind them and just tell them play by play. They're getting out of the car now. They're walking into into the building. The late, great Howard Cosell, a prophet of the obvious.
Yeah, well, and I've heard you mention this, and even though he's not a teaching pro, the few times I've heard Andre up there, obviously the guy has some insight on watching a match. Even Jim Curry is decent at points, but I'm talking about the technicalities. It's so painful to hear people try to sugarcoat around the issue with Coco Gauff or whoever with somebody's serve, and it's like, oof.
Well, actually, I mean, I think take the high road. There's not a right or wrong, but just the way she's hanging onto the racket, the angle of the racket face, when she turns, she doesn't have the option. Yeah. And then within her game, not to, because Braden was on as a commentator, and he was what they told Vic, the TV people, make it light, make it funny, make it light, make it funny.
Entertaining.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, but, to just work backwards. And there are times, granted, the 90 seconds TV, they're going to go to commercial, and they don't have that much time in between points.
True.
But when they do, and they don't even show doubles, they don't show juniors, they don't show veterans. No. They just over and over again about the singles. But I don't, here in the States, and I think around the world, I've watched tennis here, there, and everywhere on TV, that the public's not being educated. Just not being educated. It
might even be worse than that, Steve. They're being uneducated. They're actually often hearing just, seriously, it'd be better if someone didn't hear anything versus some of the things they hear. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm stating the obvious to you. But I did want to throw out, if you guys don't mind, one other off-the-cuff thought. This will be for Ivan. Now, I'm assuming you guys are football fans, yes?
Yeah, of course.
All right. NFL, who would you think is considered one of the greatest coaches?
Greatest coaches.
I mean, I know we have Lombardi and obviously Bill Belichick, but I have a thought on that, and I'm going to throw you guys this quick trivia question. Off the top of your head, who has won as a coach 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks? No one ever gets into this discussion. I know this is a tennis podcast, so I hope you can bear with me.
No, that's great.
So I know you're a sports fan. So think about that. It's my favorite line on that, and most people, even if they're hardcore tennis or football fans, don't think about it. But you guys have any thoughts on that, who it might be? It's a pretty small, I think only a one-person club. 3 Super Bowls with 3 different quarterbacks, and I'll throw in a hint. The first African-American quarterback to win a Super Bowl.
The former Redskins, the Washington Generals, Joe Gibbs.
And he's Joe Gibbs, who's also big time with the racing car industry nowadays, or was. But you had Mark Ripien, Joe Theismann, and Doug Williams.
Wow.
And I mean, what's more impressive than that? Everyone keeps giving, Bill Belichick, who I'm a fan of, him and Tom Brady. But I mean, who's ever going to do that again? Wow. 3 Super Bowls with 3 Ds. I think that says it all for Joe Gibbs if you get down to it. But there's your trivia for the night. Sorry to bore you guys.
No, football. I asked a young Canadian boy here, and obviously in Canada, football is not the go-to sport, but they definitely play football, and they definitely have access to the US of A. And I said, when I say fumble, what do you think of? And, it came down to the Oxford Webster Dictionary. He was right on tripping, trip, stumble, fumble. And, I always say this is that if a running back is going through the line of scrimmage, they're not hanging on to the ball with both hands. 100,000 people in the stadium are going, what are you doing? But a fumble's a fumble. I mean, the unforced error, then why do people keep making that same unforced error over and over and over again? And then, there's no change. I heard Kyrgios being interviewed during COVID. He said, well, I'm working on my game. And it was a woman asking questions, and she asked him, well, when you come back, are you going to be a better serve and volleyer? And he had no answer. A guy who serves like that.
Unbelievable.
And obviously he doesn't have the mechanics of a Sampras. I think that's one other thing too. The history is, Ivan is always going back. Was it 2006 with Agassi, or no, it was before that? 96 maybe.
No, 2004. His quarterfinal match, 3-4.
2004.
Yeah,
so 20 years ago,
Agassi
and Sampras.
Oh, the 4 tie breaks.
Yeah,
at the Open, was it? Yeah. What a match! Oh my God, what a match!
With you hear people say, "Well, no one will hit the ball like Jimmy Connors again." I've heard Vilander say that, and we have to be careful. Like, so who said what? But in Courier with Sampras on the volley, and for Jimmy to play that conventional approach volley, it's like it's a lost art, and the equipment's definitely changed. The speed of the ball has definitely changed. But look at the top Americans on the men's side. Yeah. Tommy Paul is a really, really good athlete. He's starting to come in more. He's watching old film of people like Rafter and Henman, Becker, Edberg. But the calculation he has on his volleys. And then if you think of TFO and Fritz, but early on, and then why does that happen? Like when you grew up, I mean, it was just, if you didn't serve volley in doubles, you were not a good doubles player.
Well, I mean, Steve, I always say this: I wouldn't even play tennis if you couldn't go to the net and volley. To me, it would be like playing volleyball and you never spike. You just stay back and keep setting and poking the ball. And I understand center. To me, I don't think you can hit a ball harder than that guy hits it consistently. I mean, Ian Alvarez, I don't think it's physically possible to hit it any harder than these guys do. So at some point, somebody has to, and Alcaraz does come in. I mean, I think he's reasonably confident when he does come in, but that's where it's going to have to at some point go. Just geometrically, people have to know how to end the point getting in. And it's something I wrote down to see if I can find my note here, but that's what's so painful too. And I don't mean to go on another tangent, but when I'm watching tennis, singles, these guys, number one, aren't looking to go in. Two, they don't really understand about going in. When they do go in, they don't necessarily know where to hit an approach at. And when they are in, they don't have technically sound volleys. And also, they don't know where you should hit the volley. So other than that, they're pretty confident at the net. It's like I'm watching this, I'm thinking, if you're not moving forward on that, when would you go in? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You watch somebody hit a ball where a guy's about to fall into the first row of the stands, or going on another rant with Medvedev standing 30 feet down the baseline and return. So could you imagine Sampras playing him or McEnroe in his prime, allowing that to take place?
Yeah.
It's just insane to watch that. But anyway.
A couple of weeks ago, maybe it was last week, the days running each other, but Yvonne made a very astute point with Alcaraz versus Alcaraz.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, I did hear that. Yeah.
Yeah, Alcaraz coming in versus Alcaraz, playing all these creative shots.
Yes.
With
one thing to add is, I believe Medvedev, a very smart player. I think he is staying back that far because he knows that players don't come in.
Not coming in?
Yeah, so he can say, well, I'm just going to get back here. You're not coming in anyway. It's easier for me to get that return back and just get in the point. Why would I stand close and get your serve 20 miles per hour faster when I could just get back here and you're not coming in anyway?
No, you're absolutely right, Ivan, and I can assure you I would not want to play a game of chess against Medvedev. You can tell that guy is a sharp fella, but he does get away with it, like you just said. And, Steve, I know you've referenced Roger Federer talking about how he just knows at Wimbledon when he played, no one's coming in.
He said, verbatim, it's it's frightening. It's frightening how low the level play is at Wimbledon. I know less than 2% of the time my opponents are coming in behind the serve. Coming back to TV commentators, Kramer was a commentator, Gonzalez was a commentator, Raven Klassen was on, and we say, hey, you're retiring, and we think, because he's done some TV back in his native South Africa, and he said, no, I don't think I'd want to do TV because you have to be politically correct. How many people are in the booth going, what is he doing? And I know on the podcast, I think I said 17 out of 18, but fact checkers, 18 out of 19 times. Again, repetition, but Djokovic serves to the deuce court, hits a slice out wide, comes in. This is in a final, right? Australian, you said? Semi?
Semi maybe.
Yeah, he carved up Medvedev doing that. Is that who you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's like you always say, Steve, if people don't serve in volley because they don't serve in volley, if you don't get in young, you're not getting the reps to understand how it all works to begin with, let alone no one's guiding you on it either. But to me, it's really painful to watch because I really don't think the game can get much better from the baseline. These guys, I mean, you can't hit the ball any harder than they're doing it. I don't think, but it is entertaining. I still love watching Sinner and these guys hit a ball, but it's like,
It's great to go back and pound this out. It's like what you said about Joe Gibbs. I'd never heard that, read that. And not to take anything away from any of those three quarterbacks, but you know what? We've had some flattery that we've been told that, okay, they'll take a C athlete and make him an A player. They'll take chicken, turn it into chicken salad.
All right, now Yvonne's got an edit to do.
Yeah, he's writing that down.
No, Steve, I'm kidding, but you're so true. Now, we also didn't mention yet John Riggins this whole time. That didn't hurt, and unbelievable. The Hogs, the offensive line didn't hurt. But I know from having read a bunch of stuff that he was a player's coach. His players loved him. Joe Gibbs was apparently a guy that, there are certain coaches, that's a whole other conversation, that are really harsh and, get a little too like a Bill Parcells or a Bobby Knight can be pretty, a different style, not quite like a Wooden or a Joe Gibbs. Everyone's got their own style. I get that. But from what I've read, his players all really respect him and like him quite a bit, but that helps. That reminds me, if you don't mind, a quick tangent, and I know you know this one, Steve. I always love this, and maybe Yvonne's heard it too. The John Wooden story with, oh gosh, now I'm having a brain cramp. Who was his center that just passed away?
Michael Walton. Or Bill Walton.
Bill Walton, yeah. You know the story where Bill Walton showed up to campus like his second year, and he had the long hair and the earring and that, and John Wooden had a little talk with him, and he said, well, Coach, you can't make me get a haircut. And the coach said, well, it's been really good having you on the team, Bill.
We're going to miss you around here.
Yeah. He got on his bike, went and rode. But I just love that. You don't have to yell, rant, and rave. This is, again, back to the structure we talked about. Yeah, that's fine, Bill. It's been really good having you on the team, so good luck with that. But, I just love that.
And Bill Walton, throughout his life, did so much to reinforce
his love for Wooden.
Yeah. Then, actually he overcame a speech impediment, was on TV forever. Actually, I said Michael Walton because when I was a kid, I went to the Michael. Here's a side story. Michael Walton, Bobby Orr at a hockey school, and I was in Toronto.
Really?
I was in Ontario. I was in Toronto at one hockey school. So on a Sunday, I'm ushered off to meet Bobby Orr. I'm 13. He's 19. He's the best hockey player in the world, or soon to be. And I go, hey, let's go for a skate, Steve. And I go, I didn't bring my skates. That'd be like Federer saying, "You want a rally?" So I don't have a racket. But coming back to John Riggins, I think it's 30 for 30, where he had retired and Joe Gibbs went to his house. He got in the car, he got on an airplane, got in the car. He just rocked up and go, "You need to come back and play more." And he did.
No kidding.
Yeah.
No, well, that's a great line. I did see it may have been the same thing on John Riggins. I love those 30 for 30s. Those are fantastic. But I didn't realize if he didn't continue he for a while had like a high school track record. That guy could fly.
Yeah.
But people his nickname was the Diesel. But apparently back in his day, I don't know if it was the half mile or whatever he ran, he was actually quite a track athlete, which I was shocked to hear that. Actually, just by the way he runs.
Yeah.
Not the kind of guy, it's like watching who's a Derrick Henry. You guys familiar with him?
No.
He plays now for I believe it's the Ravens. If you guys ever get a chance, number 22, he's 6'5" and weighs about 240. Good luck when he gets past the line and you're in the secondary trying to deal with this guy. You guys get a chance and you can catch him, Derrick Henry, or even just find some highlights of him. Guy is unbelievable.
I told a young girl here just today that she's departing. She's from Germany. Mm-hmm. And she's here as a nanny, but she has a tennis background. So, one of her assignments is to help this young 6-year-old that we're teaching. And I said, before this young guy gets on an iPad and watches Ninja Turtles or whatever, right. As I said, just say you got to watch these 3 things, and just could be the women's 800, it could be Australian football. Just expose tennis kids to other athletes, because it's not happening. Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of Canadian kids come here, and I'm asking questions like, "There's a team in Montreal. What color are their jerseys?" And now I don't know. I just go, "You got to be kidding me! How can they won't let you back in the country?" There's a coach who works here. He was on one of our podcasts, Ethan Matthews, and we talked about football. Obviously, you said you've listened to all the podcasts, so you listened to that one. So we'll have some young kid here, and his parents are from Asia or India. Right. Could be Europe. Doesn't matter. But and we have people from everywhere. Africa. Say over here, fill in the blank. Green Bay, and they have no clue. It's like, come on, Green Bay Packers. No, I think it used to be baseball, but then I think football at one point. The fabric of American sports is that if I told juniors, girls, I said, you should watch football with your dad. You need to understand offense, defense, specialty teams. Yeah. Yes. And then kids today don't do that. Let me ask you about this. I've always said this. Don't you think entry-level adults have it so difficult. And what do you think the percentage, if 100 entry-level adults start playing tennis, how many stay with the sport?
Well, that's a great question, and I would have to throw this variable into it. It's who is teaching them, and are they trying to help them network to find people to practice with and go, try to stay with it. That's one thing I try to do so much is network students to have someone else. I remember you once asked and see what's one of the benefits of a clinic from way back, and obviously it cuts down on the price for folks, but also having practice partners, finding how often do you, at your place people practice, but I'm always shocked when I see anyone out actually practicing, which to me is just crazy. We have a pretty good wall where I'm at, and I always make it a point to take, whether it's a group or privates, down and show them how to best practice on a wall, because people don't know. Why would they know? And so, to answer your question, it's probably not a great number, but I find that the people I work with, which is all I can really account for, is I try to make damn sure, because I feel offended if they get so disgusted they quit, because I consider that's on me. I haven't really done my job. And I know I can't guarantee that with everyone, but everyone should be improving enough and be networking and understand how to practice, so they're going to see progress, so they don't bail to something like pickleball or whatever. Not that I'm down on pickleball, of course, but you know what I'm saying? People, why would you stay with a discipline if you're not seeing any improvement and you're putting time into it? Why would, you'd be crazy to stay with it, wouldn't you?
Yes, I love listening to your comments. Yes. I think with a skill set and missionary zeal, Dennis Van der Meer, you have to have missionary zeal for practice. And he used to say that his parents were both missionaries. Yeah. So here's a story for you. This is one of my favorites. So I'm in the Hamptons. I've been in tennis for 5 years. I met Joe Brandy and Andy Brandy. Mm-hmm. They were working for All American Sports. I was working for All American Sports. I get shipped from a junior camp, Deerfield Academy, to Stowe, Vermont. And the Brandy brothers are there. And I was like, this is different. These guys know quite a bit about tennis. And I'd been in tennis for 5 years as the perennial tennis bum of Boca Raton. So anyway, I work for Andy. I'm the camp director and he's the tennis director. Mm-hmm. And we had 2 vending machines. This is on a place. Across the street was the hotel restaurant. It was on the ocean. The Hamptons on the ocean. It was nice. 1979, a little before your time, Yvonne. Right. And I remember Brandy he was more serious than I was. I go, Brandy, I know you're the director, but this is going to work and you're going to let us do it. He let us do it. I said, I'm swearing everyone to secrecy, because if these people got done playing tennis and they wanted a beer afterwards, we'd have to call across the street, and then they wait for a waiter to come over, and they would be carrying waitress style. Right. They'd be carrying the cocktails or refreshments. And plus it was so expensive. So I remember we got a coffee can, filled it with quarters. So there was 2 Coke machines. And we just call them Coke machines. That's back when you put 25 cents in it, and you pull out Coca-Cola. It was a bottle. Right. So what we did, there was one outside, and we had 7-Ups and Cokes in that. And the one inside, we had beer. And these people would get done playing tennis, and I would say, hey, on us, you want a Coke, a 7-Up, or a beer? And they would say, what type of beer? You'd say, no choice. You want a Coke, a 7-Up, or a beer? And everybody would order, and we would just put the quarters in. And I remember telling the staff, I said, don't tell anybody this. And but then the gratuities, that was back in the day at this place in the Hamptons. I mean, I hated it in one sense. It was a lot of fun from a learning standpoint, but I mean, lessons were, I think, say $35, which was really, really high back then. You'd give a $35 lesson, you get a $20 tip. I remember giving lessons where women are putting makeup on while I talk to them, and the men are wearing their Italian clothes. But I was in charge. This leads all up to we had members. It was great when we first got there, because we just had hotel guests, campers. Mm-hmm. I mean, some came by seaplane, some came by boat. It was pretty high end. Yeah. So
Yep.
then what happened is the New Yorkers. No, I'm a New Yorker. There's Hicks and Slicks. So I'm a Hick. The Slicks are everybody in New York's out of school. So the people from Manhattan are coming to the Hamptons for the summer. So there was basically a war between the members and then the guests. So the next thing I know is as a camp director, I had to run this camp. We went from having 4 beautiful clay courts in the back on a bay to an inlet to we had to run it on a hard court. But we had a round robin, but because of the confrontation between the members and the guests, so that was a fun challenge. So I said, instead of having a round robin, I said, no, we have a practice session. And we had beer on the court, beer, cheese, and wine. And it was like, you toss balls to this person, you toss balls to that person. And, you can make practice a social event.
Absolutely. No, that's a great call.
One thing is to put juniors on the side, and then you just grill the juniors, say, you don't miss. And they need to know whether you call it slow motion tennis, customer tennis, is that you don't hit one winner, you put it right on the racket. Yeah. That reminds me of someone who's done really, really well in real estate, Sam Olson. He went to the same program you went to, and I remember him hitting topspin lobs over, adult ladies in a clinic.
Right.
And I'm a shadow of myself. Olson, I'd be, get over here. Just giving him such a hard time. Just put it right on the racket. And that's actually really, really good for a kid's game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's like I remember you mentioning, and you don't see it anymore, the juniors playing adults. I remember when I was in Pittsburgh, not to bore you with the story again, but there was a guy that played there who was a bit of a hacker, but he ran big-time college track in his day. So the guy would run all day long. He must have been, I don't know, late 50s. And I would send juniors over to play matches, and since they didn't know how to end points, get to the net, the guy would never lose. And would just drive these young hotshots that thought they were good crazy because he understood math. I'm just not missing. And I always, which was a great experience for these guys. In fact, I would occasionally play the guy sets just to get practice, knowing I'm going to hit 500 winning volleys and overheads to end a point. He was not going to make an error. And you just don't, you don't see it enough anymore, anywhere where you get the junior. And I know it's a different time, and unfortunately that's the case. But yeah, you would love to see some hacker playing these young hotshots that are trying to hit the ball too hard and really, doing a little damage to their ego on hitting hard, but it doesn't happen enough anymore.
Back with, for sure. Back with practice, and training many young pros in years gone by is say, why don't you have a ball machine club? A ball machine today could cost you $5,000.
Yep.
But you say, okay, just have a ball machine club, and then members of the club or participants in the municipality, the program, say, okay, you'll be a member of this ball machine club. You can use it anytime you want. But I think when people, when a pro's giving a lesson, again, Dennis Van der Meer, Missionary Zeal, so tell me about how you're going to be able to practice. And then you start creating a telephone list and say, hey, Mary Ann, Sally just took a lesson. You two would be great for each other. She's just starting out. Yeah. I'll call her. I'll talk to you about her. Here's her phone number. And you two share a ball machine. Because they can't rally. They're beginners. But they could go out and, okay, let's turn the machine on. You pick up balls while I hit balls. Yep. And, it's just a simple idea like that. But I don't think young pros today are going, okay, I've got to get, we always tell people you got to be able to do 3 things: teach, sell, and organize. And say, okay, we got to organize practice partners. You want to be a great practice partner. We had a young kid he's visited here. His dad works 3 weeks on, 1 week off, and I think he's been here 9 times now. And so he's 6 and he's feeding balls to this kid from Japan who's 16. You say, no, he needs to be able to feed. We have people come to visit, and we say, okay, go feed each other 10 overheads. And up here at this resort, Wintergreen, we have all sorts of court space. Yep. And, so say it's a right-hander and they don't put the basket on their left hip. Oh, yeah. No. So they have to get a ball, walk away from the ball basket. They get a ball, they walk back from a basket and say, hey, over here. Oh, my God. I said, over here, you have never done any basket training. You have never fed balls.
Yeah.
And, we're always telling people, if every time you're on a tennis court, you're with a paid professional, junior or adult, you won't be any good.
Mm-hmm. No.
Like you've got to find out where the backboards are. You've got to find ways to practice. Well,
on top of that, like you just said too, Steve, hopefully the people are out practicing, but not driving home too bad a mile. And too, you'd like them to be, I'll occasionally see someone on the ball machine where I'm at, and they're just slapping balls around, and it just breaks my heart. I'll even go over it and without being rude and ask them if I can just give you just a little advice, because they have the zeal to be out there, but they're grooving a bad habit, and it's just painful to watch. But
I think this,
credit that they're out there.
With Yvonne's going to take up the violin now, right, Yvonne?
Yeah, there you go. That's a fun thing to listen to someone try to learn, huh?
He can play the piano. Yeah, I've always told people, if you've ever been in a house where someone's trying to learn to play the French horn or the trumpet, like, oh my word.
Oh, violin, Steve, is the worst. Oh my Lord, it sounds like somebody strangling a cat.
But the expression, I'm sure someone said it long before Tom Brady, but you got to dare to suck if you're. And it's great to have these comments come back out. Joel Trucker, what a great tennis mind. He said, hey, if you're 15, you start going to the net for the first time, it's going to be like learning a third language.
Yeah, it's absolutely. Well, and back to what I was talking about, Steve, if you think about it, in any discipline, and I'm just, obviously we're talking tennis, but to me, really, it's only as fun proportionally as you are competent. I mean, is it fun to suck at something? So even if you're not great, you want to see some progress. Like you said, can you even rally a little mini tennis? And you want to see progress. And if you're not seeing progress, then why would you continue? But to me, that's the role of the pro, is to make sure it's happening. I mean, you can't go practice for somebody, but you can do everything else but that. Really show them how to do it, where to do it. And like you said, network. That's something I'm always trying to do, is get people, like you said, like-minded folks about the same level if possible. But even if they're weaker, you hand toss. But you just don't see that. I mean, you really, at least at public places, I'm shocked when I walk up and I see someone actually out hitting serves and actually working on the game. And it's sad to say that, but it's true. It's just crazy, but it's what it is. So.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I love you use the word competency. I mean, competency equals competency. If the tennis teacher is incompetent, the student's going to be incompetent. But I think another thing too is that, ask you with adult tennis, I think there's more privates than when people first start out. Maybe I'm wrong,
right.
but the retention. I mean, I think in juniors there's more bopping and chopping because kids are kids, and that's just the way it is. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, when you start working with adult, your history, have you had a chance to work with people for a long period of time?
I actually have. I've had at least X amount of people that I've probably worked with for 20 years and taught from scratch, which is very, satisfying to see that for a lot of reasons. But it also shows me that obviously what I'm showing them and helping them with actually works. But no, you do see a lot of what you said, where someone will take a lesson from two different pros weekly, and it's like, I mean, that is just, if you think about it, would someone do that? If your kid was doing piano lessons, would you have them taking lessons from Martha one day and then 4 days later from Roberta I mean, I really can't think of anything else where people do that.
Wow.
You hop around it's just, you're going to drive yourself crazy. But no, it really, to me, Steve, it comes down to the retention comes down back to it's only fun relative to how much ball control you can have. And again, everyone's a different level of interest and commitment. I get that. People have a job, they have kids, they don't have as much time. But that's all the more reason why you don't want them to have so much guesswork and just be slapping the ball around. But their time is even more precious if they're only able to hit once or, maybe a couple hours a week. You want to make sure they're getting good info. So when they are out there, they're having a little bit more fun keeping the ball going where they want it to go. That's a line I use a lot, and I may have stolen it from you years ago, but is I want people to learn how to hit the ball straight for two reasons. Number one if you do compete, you can try to jerk someone around a little bit. But two, you want to be able to hit a ball straight so somebody will actually want to go hit with you. You know, if you're out of control, who wants to play with you if you're just slapping balls all over the place, you know? So that to me is a real reason to get people to improve a little bit so someone will actually want to go hit balls with them. But that's just my take on that.
Well, I think one thing with your playing background, that was a bonus for you where, you know, as you entered the tennis teaching profession, you know, you put the ball on a dime and hit with anybody. I think that's where Braden has that line where if you expect your students to play, you should expect yourself to play. I've made it official here. I'm going to be 70 in not too long. I'm going to say, okay, no more demos. I mean, it moves, you know, slower than slow. But no, I think, you know, being out, someone wants to rally, just be able to rally with them. You know, I heard this from one of our students, and our students are all over the world, is a gal that we've spent quite a bit of time with, came to us for the first time 6 months, didn't play points. I mean, it's the point where she's been one in her country, came another time for 6 months. And now she's back with a coach, but the coach told the parents that, no, she can come anytime to train with us, play points, practice matches. But because the federation told the coach, well, you're teaching a doubles volley and we teach a singles volley. You know, and sometimes it's why you start going to bang your head against the wall. It's like,
it's like when I hear people talk about it says, I'm going to show you how to play women's doubles. You know, and as you say, I'm pretty sure the ball doesn't know who's hitting it. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
That to me would be offensive if I was a woman player. It's like the court's a shape, strokes are strokes, and there's so much.
I don't know. I don't. It's come up on the podcast many times. I don't understand. You know, a coach's clinic for females. A forehand's a forehand. I mean, and I think most females should be saying, no. You know, treat us the same. I mean, I think that's been an outcry for a long, long time. Is we want justice, we want equality. It's like, you know, the ATP forehand versus the WTA forehand. That got a lot of miles.
Steve, I'm going to give Yvonne something to have to edit out if you don't mind, but I'm thinking of starting up a transgender clinic. I'm going to show you the transgender stroke production. No, it's insanity. I mean, it really is crazy. You know, it's just math is math, basic biomechanics. Again, I mean, you know this 8 million times over, so I feel ridiculous even saying it to you, but yeah, it is. It's, we're almost past the point of insanity on that, but again.
Well, yeah, you do have to be observant. I was at the famous Battle of Boca, which is a nice service, every week. I'm talking every week. There's a UTR tournament. Yeah. I'm with a gal. She loses. And I said, that's a guy. And, you know, it's like, well, how do you know? I said, well, he's got an Adam's apple. I mean, it's a guy. It's a guy. And then as it came out, it was a guy versus a gal.
No, that's something. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's part of the election process here in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, yeah, remember that with the Olympics? There was some boxer, I forget what country they were from. Then that was a big deal. I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it's too simplistic, but how do you a pretty simple way to check on that? Now, I know there can be some gray, but I mean, come on. Again, I don't want to torture Yvonne with editing, but come on. How is that even a thing? But yeah, we don't want to get too off track on that stuff. But
actually, my sister, my youngest sister, is older than me, but she's younger of the two. So she goes to Cornell. Cornell has hockey. They're just starting out. And she corrected me not too long ago because I said, you girls were still wearing figure skates. She said, no, we had hockey skates. But they were just starting out. And I remember my parents, I was at this prep school in New Hampshire, and it was late in the spring. They came to pick me up, and I went to this tournament. So they played. I went to the first day. It's like a Friday night. They win, and I have to go on Saturday. My father goes, well, let's go. We got to go to the game. I go, can I just go for a run? Can I go do something? I got to go watch them. So I was told you have to go watch. But so when I was a kid, there was no women's hockey, and now it's fantastic. The level is unbelievable. But I can't see talking to my father, Big Jim, and go, hey, Dad, I think I'd have a lot more success if I were to play with the girls. It's just like, come on.
That might not have flowed.
Come on. I mean, it's bad. It's worse than bad. I mean, it's like, it's Al Michaels had the line at 1980 hockey. Do You Believe in Miracles? I think the title of his book, for sure the title of his book is You Can't Make This Stuff Up.
Nice. There's another good one out there. I don't know if you know the one by Howard Cosell, just called I Never Played the Game.
Oh, I read that book, yeah.
That's good. That's pretty interesting. But I had two quick thoughts, real quick, if you don't mind. First of all, just a little bit of a strange question for both of you. In one set, so let's say I play Bob down the road, one set. What do you guys know to be the most important stat that you could look at that would determine who won that set? And I did ask a kid that one time, being a bit of a smart aleck. He said, yeah, whoever won the last point. Yeah, I get that. No, yeah, and so you got to love that. But no, I mean, if you guys had to, which I know you know, but just think about it. And I ask people this all the time, and it's just the one stat, when they show you stats at the end of a set, the only line I have to go to know who won the set would be what in your guys' call. And tell me if you don't even know what I'm asking.
You want to go first?
Yeah, I was going to say differential. That was my guess. But if you're just one stat that they end up showing, it'd be unforced errors.
I would think the old adage, tennis is a game of mistakes. Whoever makes the most mistakes.
All right, I'm going to throw mine at you guys. You ready? One set. Just tell me who won more break points.
When you're watching a match, is how many break points did you have? Now, you got to obviously want to capitalize, but
yes,
that it's just a really interesting. Just pretty much tells you that you got to work on your serve. But go ahead, tell us your rationale.
No, but it's kind of like that sheet I sent you guys. It's not even up for debate. You guys know this. In one set, I'm not talking about a match. I agree with what you both said about differential and unforced errors. But the bottom line, the only stat you need to show me in one set, I don't even need to know the names of the players, who won more break points, won the set, period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that leads me to, and I'm just throwing that out there, not trying to be a pain in the neck. But the other thing, Steve, I've heard this said on a lot of different things, not just podcasts, but different folks. People talk about the serve being the most important shot. In my opinion, it's the return of serve. And I say that for a couple of reasons. Number one, easiest shot to go practice is your serve. You don't need anyone else around. Two, you look at the rankings, look at Isner, Karlovic, whoever, Kyrgios, Medvedev has a pretty fair serve. The top ranked guys are, in my opinion, always the guys that can break the best returners.
Best servers, you mean?
Yeah, to me, the most important shot, I think, at that higher level, obviously not in 3-0 tennis, is return of serve. That's what separates. I mean, obviously, anyone with any aptitude that really puts the time in should have a good serve. But how do you practice a return? You've got to have someone firing serves at you or some modified ball machine.
To back that up, that's a great comment. That's why it's fun to have these. Welby Van Horn used to say, how do you develop a tennis mind? Is you need to talk to as many people who have a tennis mind as you can. But Jimmy Connors was obviously excellent from the get-go, but where he really took off in the pros is because of his return of serve.
Yeah,
but his return of serve wasn't a factor, say, in the 14s because of the people on the other side didn't have huge serves. So
that is a perfect example. I don't mean to cover that. Exactly drives my point home. He served at about 75 miles an hour until Vic helped him out on that. But yeah, I mean, all about returning, and even more ridiculous with him was that he won as much as he did with that friggin' T2000 racket.
One thing about Jimmy is how did he get such a great return is that, obviously his mother, grandmother, tennis teachers, his brother.
On the wooden floors.
Beat up tennis court in the backyard. Didn't come from a lot of money. Father's a toll bridge operator, mother's a tennis teacher. But Connors, off a wooden floor. Yeah, you mentioned that. So, all winter long, couldn't get all the indoor court time, but just go and hit the wall. People don't do that.
Yep.
You got to find backboards. But I think also Selish, where we have some juniors practicing during this podcast, and I met with him beforehand, and I said, "Hey, tell me what drills you're going to do." And we're up here in the mountains, and it's amazing. Sometimes at 3:00 in the afternoon, the place closes, and we have 3 indoor courts to do whatever we want. But
nice.
Selish's father, who was a club player, he hit serves to his daughter every day, 2 baskets, so approximately 500 balls from the service line.
Yeah.
Agassi and his father souping up the ball machine. It was just survival, and that's how did he end up having such great technique. Now, his older sister too, Rita's the oldest, but then Tammy was on the same college campus you and I were on. She went from there and played at Texas A&M.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And she did not swing at the ball like Andre. So it was really out of trial and error how he.
Yeah.
If you looked at it and say, well, gee, the dad taught Tammy and the family, the upbringing, but out of fatigue and out of survival, that ball he was sending the ball as fast as he could. The number was that he hit 2,500 a day. We're talking. The kid couldn't. He couldn't reach up and put his hand on the table. He was a tiny kid. Yeah, I don't think anybody, of course, he walked a little bit like a penguin, but Agassi could just really snap that front leg straight both sides. They called him Radical, and then they named the racket Radical because he just.
Right, the head Radical, yes.
Jimmy Arias tells a story about the late Bollettieri. He's just going, this kid's awesome. This kid's awesome.
No,
we have a young kid here who's been so well taught from someone's been on the podcast many times, Miran Man, a young boy from Canada. It's ball really well. And when he plays, he backs up and the ball is up at shoulder level. And we say, no, stay. We have him playing where you can't back up behind the baseline.
I love that too.
Yes. I say, I don't really care if you hit the fence. I mean, just hit every ball. Try to keep your head still, try to maintain balance. Breathe out, but hit the ball Mach 10. Just let it rip. Just let it go.
Yes. Yeah, the line I love, and I may have stolen up on you years ago, is do not let a 2-ounce ball push you around. It's just why people are going in reverse. Their butt's practically at the back fence. And it's like, oof. But the other thing on what you were just on, Steve, the names you just mentioned, how many juniors do you know who even know who Connors, Sellis are? Or have watched, you watch old tape, the video of Connors, and one thing I loved about him too was every time his opponent was hitting the ball, you could just see in his eyes, he's thinking to himself, is this a ball that I can attack and get in on? He was always stalking the baseline. He wasn't back passively just rallying around half the time. He was almost always looking to put some pressure on you positionally, which no one really notices that, of course, but that's how I always enjoyed watching. Same thing with McEnroe,
No, I think on these podcasts, one thing is just to go back to history. It's amazing. Now, last I heard, there was 2.5 million, but I'm going to guess it's 3.5 million. There's so many podcasts. Everybody and their brother.
Oh, my God.
I've listened a little bit to Nothing Major with John Isner, Stevie Johnson.
I haven't checked it out. Yeah, I haven't checked out that. Yeah.
Sam Querrey.
Oh, okay.
Jag Sock.
Yeah.
They didn't win majors, so it's pretty good. It's self-deprecating. It's nothing major.
Right.
And it's fun to listen to. They're a lot of times it's talking about, like Andy Roddick's, they're talking about the Pro Tour. But one thing I've been doing as of late, this podcast called Cam and Strict out of St. Louis. They're both connected to the St. Louis Blues. One is a TV guy and one is a former player. And, they're talking to, some what I would say my childhood idols.
You're talking hockey, right? You're talking
hockey, but I love to ask. I like to find out, like, how did people become so good? How did people learn how to play? And like the story you said about your father, and say, okay, you guys do this, and what was it, $100 or?
Yeah, it was $100, which back in the day, that was
that's a good amount of
it's
money.
Funny, I still remember I bought my first. I remember when I got for $99.99 because I'm a big music fan. I got my first stereo, reasonably decent Marantz stereo. Isn't that funny that I still remember that? So I'm a huge music fan. That's one reason why I need to give Mike Carter a call. I understand he plays the drums as well. So
Mike Carter, Doug Tomlin, they both musicians. I saw Carter at this clinic I did in Baylor. It was fun. He came by to visit. I asked him about his music, and he said he's playing more guitar now. But
really? Oh, wow.
But he's done some recordings and Mikey Spikey. But I heard it from Doug Tomlin. Drummers like to hang out with musicians. Meaning that drummers are not musicians, but
yeah. Well, there's so many good drumming jokes. So
Carter, hang on to your drummer's joke, but Carter, he was, I was pretty serious, blowing the whistle, going, "Hey guys, we're going to get better at this." And he hung around he was there 5 years. He would have been there longer, but he had to go home. His father became ill. But go ahead, what's your story?
Oh no, there's so many drummers jokes. There was one I think I heard where it says, "What do drummers have in common with onions?" And I think it was, when they get cut, they cry. They make you cry when they get cut, or something. Something like that. But I like the one you mentioned, that drummers like to hang around with musicians. That's a great line. But that's probably one reason why I do take up percussion, is I don't have to learn notes and all that good stuff. That would drive me crazy trying to learn how to read music. But that's a whole other story. But yeah,
that's another question too. I one time was at Julian Krinsky's program in Philadelphia, training the tennis coaches, and he brought a young kid in from Puerto Rico, and he was the entertainment. He played the guitar, and I remember asking him how he learned to play, and he said to me, he was a young guy. He said, "How do you think you would do if you were to play till your fingers bleed or take lessons?" And
I think the other.
I got the right answer. Is that you just play so much?
Well, if you think about it, we're all ultimately self-taught. It's just how we're, have you had enough guidance to make the time you're putting in useful is the key. That's back to that deliberate practice. But that's another thing on another note, Steve. Anytime you work with kids that have played a musical instrument, right off the top, they appreciate practice ethic. Because it's not going to happen, as you like to use the line. It's not, you don't wake up and find it under the Christmas tree. Anyone that understands that, as soon as I have someone that I know plays an instrument, I know they know. You're not going to roll out of bed and it's there. You got to put the hours in. And hopefully the hours are fun. It should be enjoyable to get better. So, from
a learning standpoint, one bonus for yourself is obviously you've met so many adults. I've met so many parents. I had a parent tell me not too long ago, and their child was bilingual, and it's a Canadian. She was telling me that just about every tennis kid in Canada can speak 3 languages: English and French, and then they're children of immigrants. And her son plays piano. She said, "No, I wanted him to learn the language of music." And,
nice.
All the things that you read about that are good for the brain. So many key people, they should stay, like, even if it's just a half hour a day, once they have the gift of playing a musical instrument, is continue with it.
Yeah, how could you ever give it up if you've put in enough time to get reasonably decent? Yeah, it definitely is the universal language. I mean, I'm not a great drummer, but I'm sure I could play with anyone out of Russia that plays blues. It's just what it is. You don't have to even talk, so that's what's kind of fun about it. But anyway, yeah, no doubt about it. Always a fan of good music. Now, I was going to ask you guys, what do you guys do, for a little pleasure on your own time? Do you guys have any side hobbies? Not that you have a lot of spare time, I'm sure.
Well, as of late, we've been talking about that. We're looking upon some change here, but we've been a 2-man band really up here in the mountains. We've had interns and student assistants, but for what we have with the number of visitors, we really should be a team of 4.
Yes.
So I'd have to have Yvonne answer that. For me, though, I mean, going on a walk and listen to a podcast, I think just getting away from the norm, the grind. To me, I don't really think of tennis teaching as a grind, especially what I'm doing now. I'm a shadow of myself. I'm not, doing what I did years ago. Like say at Tyler Junior College, when you were there, the program was tiny, right?
Well, it was a little small, but I know it grew. And I remember there you used to do a lot of running.
Yeah, no, at your expense, I remember getting beat badly by you. It took me a while to figure out, I don't play very well anymore. So it wasn't really, it wasn't fitness. When I first was there, would have been a couple of years before you got there, where, so the guys on the team, we were second-class citizens. So, we had Scotty Perelman on a couple of times. He went to Kansas and he won the Big 8.
Yeah.
And there was a kid named Franco who played 6 for him. And I used to practice with Franco, and I had the winning edge over Franco, and Pearl didn't like that.
Nice.
I go, Pearl, it means I could play for you. But no, I had to basically at 27 say, hey, you know, I can't play anymore. I think it's the way I'm wired too, as a J versus a P. But
I got you.
But how about you, Ivan? I keep telling Ivan we got an indoor-outdoor pool here. He's a California boy. He's got to go for a swim. He's very fit.
There you go.
But especially in the summertime, you know, I know Ivan's, you know, he's a 14 plus on the beep test and hits a lot of balls. But this summer we had a lot of visitors.
Yeah.
What do you do what do you do for a little fun, Ivan? Just listen to me. Try to make people laugh.
Yeah. I mean, not, you know, working all the time. When I take a nap once in a while.
Yeah, just try to recharge. He's trying to recharge and get ready for the editing.
His parents just came in and took him to DC. They've been here a couple of times, but Ivan,
nice.
He's an old man now. Now he's at that quarter century mark. He just turned 25, so
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
his best years are behind him.
But what's the old line? I've got socks older than Ivan. That's funny. No, that's an old line.
I think for me, I would say that a luxury in tennis is to travel. You know,
there you go.
Been spoiled by, you know, I've taught tennis or traveled for tennis in over 30 countries, and
well, that's awesome.
But yeah, but I think also too, you've brought it up many times, is you know, Dave Anderson, who's been a guest many times, you know, he's always like he mentioned with this young Clayton Stanley, is that he still gets on the court. I think it's really sad when people leave the game. You know, they played, but then they don't play anymore. And I think that's also part of the U.S. system, where in Europe, where people can play club tennis, and they play club tennis in the seniors. They could be a 45 club team, and on and on. And there's different seasons, and you know, there's high levels. And if your team, for the most part, it works. If your team wins their league, they move up a league. But if they're last in the league, they move down a league. So, and for the longest time, and say in Germany, for example, you could have 2 Auslanders, 2 foreigners, and it's very social. But you know, now I think a lot of people play really good tennis, like you did. Is that there used to be the 21s, 21 and over. There's 21 and under. I'm sorry, that age division's gone. It still exists in Europe. 21 and under. We used to have 25 and over.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
and then you used to have to play enough national tournaments in your section to go to national 35s. So there's a flip side to everything. The NTRP has been a very good model for indoor courts, the owners of indoor operations. But I think that's one thing of many that has hurt the junior versus veteran matches. Is it used to be there'd be open tournaments in Florida years ago. You had to win 2 B tournaments to play an A tournament, and that's a little bit of the way the French system is. And the UTR was supposed to copy the French system, and it really hasn't. There's some positives, I think, especially with the money UTR terms. There's some positives, but where everybody plays everybody, and the proximity to your doorstep, the more matches you can play. You know, Wayne Bryan said that with that famous letter to Patrick McEnroe and others, is that other points he's made. You know, who can you play when you walk around the block? Get on your bike, and who can you play? Your mom gives you a ride around the town, the village, suburb that you live in. Who can you play? But yeah, people need to play. I think it's amazing that people don't have ladders anymore. Where I think the toughest job at a club would be arranging matches. Yeah, but that's almost gone away.
No, I mean, it's just crazy. There ought to be where, you know, we try to do it at the park where there's a list of people that just put down their level of play and I mean, people need to call each other, but here's what's sassy. This happened to me a while back. I mean, I'm not playing a whole lot, but it's just time-wise and finding people to hit with. But I saw a couple of guys out one time hitting. You could tell they could hit a little bit, and they were very zealous. And And I just introduced myself. I wasn't trying to, huck them for lessons. I just said, hey, look, guys, if you're ever looking for someone to, work out with, I'm not playing a lot of singles, right? I'm sure I can hold my own in some ghost doubles. And they just poo-poo it like, yeah, who are you, whatever, never hear from them, and just no interest. And I've even done that with supposedly high-level juniors, about just a practice session. If someone offered me that when I was 15, I'd probably wet my pants. A pro wants to hit balls with me? No response. It's just a totally different cultural mindset, I think. I don't know. I guess it has something to do with the phones and whatnot, but I don't know. I just find that to be very odd. In fact, when I was younger, I would get with other local pros, that were interested in wanting to get a workout. But that just, I don't know. It's kind of a lost thing nowadays. I don't know. I guess you guys don't experience that as much there because you got a bunch of high-end people coming and wanting to work on their game. It's a different animal than rec players, but it's just a weird thing.
Yeah, what we're doing right now is different. Where someone comes in, they're going to practice twice a day, do fitness.
They
generally get on an airplane. They've come a long ways.
Right.
But going way back to being out in Southern California, it would have been the late 70s, early 80s. The John Wayne Tennis Club in Newport Beach, I believe they had 17 courts.
Mm-hmm.
That's where I tell people I was VJ Armitrage's neighbor because when he would go off on the tour, he'd leave his huge Mercedes at the John Wayne Tennis Club, and I would park next to his Mercedes. So
nice.
we were neighbors. But they had a video monitor for every court, and they had their own in-house rating system, 1 through 10. And there was, Tracy Austin, Bob Blood, Stan Smith, Rod Laver. There was amazing members that were 10s. Wittenberg and I, Kim Wittenberg, who's now retired in Italy, we were both 9s. And, there was, the 9s didn't play basically the 10s, but it was like, well, you want to have a hit. But, clubs used to have ladders and if you could play down, you could play up. If everybody were to play once a week with someone who's below their level, tennis would be really healthy.
Absolutely. I just don't know why people don't still love getting out and doing that, but it's a time crunch thing. Like you said, a greed factor. People just want to sell courts for whatever, but it's a balance trying to make a living and have some fun and hit some balls. But yeah, it's just a totally different world from like the 70s, 80s, whatever, the big boom. But it's what it is. Speaking of serve and volley, VJ Armitage, there's a guy that knew how to volley a little bit.
Yeah, and he had the nerve to say, Jimmy doesn't serve that big. I one time was in a pro shop. It was Woody Blocker who played tennis right-handed and left-handed at SMU. He got in a car accident.
Wow.
Jimmy Connors was complaining about, I was just a fly on the wall. I was a teaching pro on staff, Stowe, Vermont. And, Jimmy's complaining about the pain in his back. And Woody Blocker, they grew up in juniors. He told me, he said, you need to quit tossing the ball so far over your head. And Connors went ballistic. He goes, I'm so sick of people picking me at, criticizing my serve and this and that. Hey, but I have to do this. Got to get this in. You mentioned Mike Carter. We talked about Mike Carter, Jim Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
Eric Oberhammer was a student of yours. I should say a classmate of yours.
Yes.
He actually visited one time with Jim Rogers, and they didn't tell me they were coming. So I show up, and they're there, crack of dawn. And I look, 3 courts away from the classroom, the clubhouse, and I go, those guys can hit the ball pretty well. Who are those guys? So they,
that's funny.
So then I go closer and closer to the courts, and but Eric was a pretty good player, and he big kid, and he just goes, I can't believe I'm losing to Rogers. But what happened to Rogers is that he started from scratch, coming down from Winnipeg, Manitoba, and it's funny, he was a goalie. He was a backup goalie behind the famous Hall of Famer Ed Belfour.
Oh, no kidding.
So he's like, Jimmy's like 15 or 16. His father goes, Jimmy, I think you're afraid of the puck. He goes, yeah, I'm afraid of the puck. Well, you don't want to be a goalie if you're afraid of the puck.
Yeah, that's not going to work out.
So he started, he ended up playing tennis. He played a lot of hockey in Europe when he's in Germany and Finland. But he he started from scratch with all the training that we had. And, I mean, he played a lot of club tennis. He got to the point where the beer drinking didn't help him with his movement, but he became a very very good tennis player. What comes to your mind though? I know somebody you played a lot of doubles with, Cliff Minke, gave Eric the name Opie from the TV show.
Opie, yes.
Was it Mayberry RFD or something?
Oh,
the Andy Griffith Show, I think.
Andy Griffith Show, yeah. Oh, no, I remember a bunch of the folks. I mean, my memory's saying, but yeah, and not to bring the conversation, I'm so sad about Eric. My gosh, I mean, what he went through is just terrible. I know you dealt with a lot of that with him, but yeah, that's so tough. But no, he always had a great attitude out there. And I'm trying to think of this other, as far as names.
I think of some names, but Eric, he unfortunately passed away of leukemia. Yeah. I took him to the, I say Oberhammer, you're my guest. He was so beat up that we went to all these lectures. We didn't go to any social functions, but we go for like 5 days of the PTR symposium.
Right.
And he was a squeaky wheel. I mean, he raised his hand and the questions he would ask.
He was not shy. I didn't. Yeah. Definitely, I love that.
Yeah. But one question that was fun is that it was actually it was at a PTR function, but when he took the USPTA test, he was given P2 instead of P1. Professional 1, professional 2, professional 3. So he raises his hand. This guy's done with his lecture going, any questions? And Eric raises his hand. He goes, 22 years ago, I took the USPTA test. And you gave me a P2, and this is the reason. This is what you wrote. Can we discuss that? And it was actually Chuck Gill. And then I got involved. I wrote a letter. Chuck Gill wrote a letter. Chuck at that time, he was vice president. But before he was passed away, they gave him the USPTA 1 level.
That's a great story.
No, I remember one time it was Ann Pankhurst was way up the ladder with a PTR, and she was nervous. In my opinion, she was nervous. She had all these kids, and they were getting ready to do a demo with Dennis, and Eric just went right up, started talking to one of the kids that he had taught at Myrtle Beach, and then the kid was good enough to then be at Van der Meer's World Class Academy, and Ann Pankhurst reprimanded Eric, and he said, "Well, ma'am, I've taught her for 5 years. I think it's okay if I talk to her for 5 minutes." But Eric Oberhammer, his ankles were as big as grapefruits, but great passion. He I believe it was taken down, but it was. He did a great job teaching all these kids with Down syndrome. He did a great job teaching kids, underprivileged kids. I mean, he was a Pied Piper. I mean, he just.
He had great energy.
He used to say, "I'm a 3-5 world class coach." I'm a world class coach. I teach world class 3-5 lady doubles or something. I mean, but I had to ask you about Eric because I know he was one of your buddies.
Oh yeah, no, he was a great guy. A quick story about Dennis, which I had forgotten. You'll appreciate this. He was a pretty good player, obviously, and he really loved to hit balls. So on certain breaks, when people were heading off to lunch and whatnot, he would call me out when he'd want to play points. But he always had a rule. He'd call me up to the net and say, "So, Mike, here's the deal: no heavy topspin, you can't serve and volley, and no drop shots." He would just make that. Those are the rules before we get rolling.
No, I did that with Dennis. All Dennis would have for lunch is an apple, and you just have an apple. That guy would work all day long.
Oh my God!
So I was I hit the ball well enough where I was just you just had to hit right to him, and
he loved to hit balls.
And if it was on a clay court, he would draw like a big semicircle. Your shots have to land here,
right? And you know the drill, then yes.
At his house, he built a very narrow backboard. He hit the backboard all the time. He was very conscientious about his demos. But one time, the story on the apple is Dennis was going to have his hit, and he would come into Tyler every year and go, "Dennis, no hitting at lunchtime today. You and I are meeting." And I go, no, we'll we go out to dinner every night. I go, no, we're meeting at lunchtime. And what happened is we had people that were taking the test a second time. They'd been studying tennis for 2 years. And he had a tester come in who had just joined the staff. He'd been on the staff for like a month, and he was one of the testers. I go, Dennis, this isn't working. And so, actually Russell Seymour, who's down the road, he came into Tyler and ran a club. He last time I saw him, he was playing the 85s. He's won so many gold balls. Very, very good player, and played at a world-class level. Huh. So I go, come on, Russell Seymour. I mean, I said, I'll call him up. I'll invite out to dinner with us. He does. He's a tester, but he doesn't know it like we know it. And but anyway, it was Dennis handled that really well.
Nice.
So,
nice.
But I did have to. That was not something that he wanted to do. Is miss that lunchtime hit. But that's it. People need to know that the guy taught tennis all day. But what he did during his lunch break is he hit balls.
He loved the sport for sure. Hey, another quick name, which just popped in my head, and I think he was out of the Midwest somewhere. Brian Hanna. You remember him in the program? Back?
I last I know, Brian Hanna, he left tennis. But for our listeners, I can do this with anybody I've worked with for a long period of time. So Brian, he was in construction. I believe he went back to construction.
Okay.
And I do stay in touch with a lot of people. But one of the reasons I tell people, if I'm on the phone, generally I'm trying to help somebody with college placement or job placement. So for our listeners, Brian had the cowboy boots, the blue jeans. He had the toothpick, and he had the
that's right.
He looked like he was ready to fight anybody. So he was picking on. I learned that from Van der Meer, actually, is that you got to go after the bully. So he was picking on one of the students. So I knew all the coaches. So I said, all right, Hannah, I got the afternoon practice organized, the evening lab. So it was right as the teams were finishing their practice, but we went to basketball, and we go in the locker room, and I said, Coach, anybody on your team here would like to wrestle this guy? I said, we don't need to throw any punches, but anybody want to just wrestle for a few minutes? Then we went to the football locker room or the football practice. That's
funny.
But one thing with Brian Hanna, he used to say, and Yvonne could edit this out, he said, calling me by my last name. I mean, I didn't hear
that to you?
No, I didn't hear this directly. No, but
okay.
But he had told people, Smith, he knows his. So anyway, I'm designing in a lab it got to the point where we would have 80 people come out for the dollar clinic. And they would be all levels of play. We ended up having really good adult players come. We have organized this on 12 courts. And then we had the guinea pigs. We wouldn't add any PE classes at that time, but then we had all the tennis tech students. And that would be, you add it up, say, okay, we're going to have, close to 200 people coming out here. It's like, okay, they're here for 2 hours. And I'm setting this all on the board, and he's slouching in his chair, Macho Man Hanna, and he says to me, how would you do this without us? And I said, 1 minute. And I just erased everything on the board, and I said, everybody,
you're running it.
I said, everybody, no, I didn't say, Brian, you're running. I said, no, everybody show up. I said, you can wear blue jeans, you can wear your cowboy boots, and if you have a toothpick, and you got to just sit on the bleachers and take notes. But what you have to do is you got to go home and type out an outline on how I did it. And I just looked at all these student teachers. They said, I'm pretty confident I can do it better without you. You get partners and you blow the whistle because a lot of them were, nervous to speak. They didn't have the background of a player like yourself. I mean, there was like A to Z. I don't know what Brian's doing. I hope he's doing well. And
absolutely.
But, he would. I think, like most people, went through that. Even if they didn't stay in tennis, that program was Character 101.
Oh, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
It was tennis was number 2. It was like life skills is number 1.
Yeah. No, I certainly enjoyed my time there. Learned a lot, as you know, and yeah, that was just invaluable, really. So no doubt about it. And just scratching the surface too, because I know I was there probably the first 2 or 3 years, and I know you were there another 7. So I'm sure constantly.
Yeah. If you know Carter, you were there right at the beginning stages. Yvonne, you have any questions?
Roberts.
Oh, Jennifer Roberts, yeah.
Yeah, she was there. Yep, yeah.
Yeah, she went on to Illinois, then she was in real estate. She has 2 kids that she used to send to us, and then they ended up going to Dallas. I know they worked with Anderson. They both played. Their kids played. She married a pro, Jim Morgat. Her kids played at Boise State. But no, just think about how hard she worked. Whoa.
My God, yeah, no.
It was, and some people like say Carter 5, Anderson ended up after 3. He was had autonomy at 2 neighboring clubs, but he was.
That's right.
Was around
and
him
Craig
for 8
Tiley
years.
was there for like 5-7 years, I think. Or
Tiley was there 7 years because he came in, had a visa problem. Wasn't that he 7 years in Tyler, 7 years in Tibet. In other words, he got a student visa. He entered the country without his visa, and like, And there's a guy, Kenneth Lewis. The guy didn't like to see me coming because there was so much paperwork involved with having a foreign student. So Tiley came in, he left the country, and he went to France for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks on a holiday, or he hit some balls as an amateur player. He played fairly well, and so then he shows up, and I go, "You can't enter the country." We talked about sending him to Canada or whatever, but we pulled it off where he was in the school, but his paper was never processed. And so his parents, I should say his mother, and brother, sister, they came to visit. But yeah, he was there a long time. But so then what happened was Jennifer Roberts went to Illinois, and she was the women's coach. She was with us for 2 years. She played at Illinois. She was with Scotty for 2 years, Scotty Perelman at Kansas. I was for 2 years. Uh-huh. She ran Braden School in St. George, Utah.
Oh, wow.
And then she, she still looks like she was 16, but I remember Carol Carrs. I spent so much time talking to this athletic director. So she gets the job at Illinois. Tiley gets the job as the director of instruction at the new Atkins Tennis Center. But unfortunately, or fortunately for Craig Tiley, not for Neil Adams, but he was the coach. He lost his job. Craig got the job as the interim, and he amazing. He was the guy that my second time around, he wasn't interviewed to be the coach at Tyler Junior College.
Yes, I remember you telling me. Yeah,
that story. And John Peterson asked me years later, "Who'd you recommend?" I said Craig Tiley, because for our listeners, he took 7 years hanging out with us, and then he took the Illinois program. Great work ethic from ground level zero, obscurity to the national championship.
Yeah, in about 2 years, wasn't it?
No. He was there. Again, our fact checker. No. That program climbed, but he, having recruits Kevin Anderson was there after he won, but to have Rajiv Ram and Riley Hart were freshmen, so that program got better and better. But I believe it took him 10 years. I'd guess he was there. I'm going to guess that he was there. If I had to guess, I would say he was there 11 years and 1 after 9. It was right in that range.
He had to rebuild the whole works, and he did. That's impressive.
Yeah,
very cool.
But the other thing, say for example, by the time he went to Illinois, he would not. Vic Braden wouldn't have walked in a room and recognized him, wouldn't have known him. But he knew the Braden method backwards and forwards. He actually spent some time with Dennis for sure, Dennis and Pat. Let's do this. You have a question, Yvonne, for Mike?
I have your notes in front of me here, Mike. One thing I liked from it that maybe you could expand upon is this Einstein quote. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking used when we created them.
You want to read that one more time? Read that one more time.
Yeah.
Einstein. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them.
Well, yeah, Steve, you guys obviously know. All we would need to refer to would be American Tennis at the top. And go back to your Patrick McEnroe letter, but not to be beaten up on names, but yeah, It's just the revolving, as you know, one big name takes over for another, and nothing really ever changes. Steve, you know that better than I could ever say that.
Well, I think Billie Jean King with her line where subordinates and coordinates, the subordinates they know what the coordinates are doing, but the coordinates vice versa. So in other words,
right,
we on the outside looking at the white ivory tower, what is in this country? What's the USTA doing? They've thrown money at it. And, you start bad-mouthing the USTA. It's not like you're in player development. You got to go back to 1987. There's been a lot of people who got through that revolving door. But with that, John Patrick was there for 7 years. So who takes his place is his roommate from Stanford, who's an elegant speaker, great guy, Martin Blackman, and then Jose Garris. The thing with the system, you're, and it's all true. Okay, your eyes first. Then it goes, from your eyes to your head, your brain. Then you got to move your feet, and then your hands, and that's the system. I mean, it is true. It's like, okay, recognition skills and you moving. But then the term parameter. Well, you're talking about kids that are 10 and under. Wayne Bryan said, no, you got it wrong. It's 6 and under. You got to have 6-year-olds that are swinging at the ball really well, and just think about how many years between 6 and 10.
Yeah, or 6 and 18. I mean, you just think about if somebody starts properly. And again, I'm going to state the obvious, but real change doesn't happen without real change. And just one other thought, guys. And I've actually been in meetings where I've actually heard somebody say, literally, it doesn't have to be good. Just wrap your brain around that thought, okay? But here's the other thing, Steve. I've done meetings where someone says, "Oh no, we're not trying to make. This isn't going to be the IMG Academy. This is, And again, if you accept mediocrity and something being half baked, that's what it's going to be. And my line for that, and I know I have a lot of crazy ones, but people generally don't complain in a restaurant that the food was good and the service was too good. Yeah, I've yet to hear someone come out of a program and complain that it's too structured and it's run well. I mean, it's just, that's just the microcosm as we mentioned about American tennis. But that's not to beat up on it, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I guess the results speak for themselves. How many all court players do we have in the last 20 years? That's just my thought on that. I don't want to get too long-winded on that, but I appreciate the thought. And I love the Einstein quote too. And it's pretty true.
There's so many Einstein quotes. If you don't know the history of your subject, you don't know your subject. If you can't explain your subject to a 6-year-old, I mean, if you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, it. Somebody who's really taken what we call a deep dive. I mean, so many people criticize what we do, but they haven't. My name in third person, Steve Smith stuff. They don't really know the history, the time that's gone into assembling the homework, the pathway we have. Petrus Kugimore from South Africa. Actually, it was on Facebook today. He's back home. He was here for a short period of time, but he actually came with me. We went to Memphis to help an inner city program, city of Memphis, 60 courts, 12 indoor courts. But the one thing is that, okay, I know now, okay, who's this little old man showing up? But I showed up with half dozen kids who could hit the ball. And, all those kids I brought out there, they're all gone on and played college tennis. But that's where, a lot of times when people, that's something that helps me out. And, I've had people tell me you should stop coaching and just teach tennis teachers. And perhaps that's true. But when people come and visit, generally when they visit, I would say 99% of the time, when they show up, say a coach comes here from a learning standpoint, like if they were here today, they would have seen, a few players like, oh, okay, these kids, maybe they don't go on and set the world on fire, but you can just tell they know tennis. They can hit the ball. Yeah. They have quote unquote a great base.
Well, you can't fake competence. I suppose you can try, but at some point, as I believe the line goes, at some point someone's going to say ready, play, and either you have strokes or you don't. You can't fake that. I always say that. You are your strokes. You know, you can have fancy shoes and lots of racks, but the bottom line is that to me is what separates players more than anything else. So it just starts with that. And of course, there's all the other aspects. I get that, but I don't, it's like I believe Vic once said about the mental problem is really an engineering problem. If you don't have strokes, I don't know what you're working with, but that's just how I look at it. But I could be wrong. But anyway,
it's great to talk to you. It's great for our listeners to hear you because you've obviously lived this, and and you're motivated to still tune in and listen to these podcasts. Yeah, Vic is the one.
I love him.
Vic is the one who says the umpire will say, "Ready, play."
Well, yeah, and at that point, you can't go and hide. It really does get back to that. And I just wish more people would think that way at any level of play. Everyone has their own desires of how good they want to be. I get that. But you got to be realistic, and as long as your expectations don't exceed the work you're putting in, you'll be fine. So anyway, I don't want to chew up too much of your guys' time, but I just want to thank you, Steve, for all that you do. As you know, I tell you that offline as well. But I don't think people even have a clue of the resource that you provide, and I wish, if nothing else, we get the word out on that. And I know I try to, but it's attention span. You know how it goes with the phones nowadays. So we're giving it a good, healthy whirl is all we can do. So, and hats off to Yvonne too, to have to edit all of my gibberish. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.
No, it's been great to have you on. How about we go one more question from Yvonne, and then Yvonne can rattle through some of these highlights he has.
That sounds good.
One more question. Here's one that I liked. Again, looking through your notes here, Mike. Self-reflection. Why do you play?
That's something that I don't think people ask themselves. I ask people that all the time. Do you ever really sit down and ask yourself, why do you play tennis? And I'm sure there could be an array of answers, but how many people really do that? Why are you? Here's a quick thought, guys. Not to go too far off on a tangent, but this is a line I like to use too. If you play a match, let's just say it's a ladies' league, whatever. If you play a match, it's a 2.5 hour match. You went 3 sets and you lost 11-9 in the tiebreak, 9-11. Well, was that 2.5 hours different if you won the last 2 points or lost them? What really is the difference? Did you really enjoy the battle, the learning, being out there? If people are so focused on just the score line or the end result, is it only fun if you won? I guess is the question. That's the Jimmy Connors deal. You have to love being out there and love the battle. That's why you should be out there, not just did I win or lose. The people that worry too much about that are the ones that cheat. And I always love to say, if you're that excited about winning, just go to a local trophy shop and buy a few trophies and just have them engrave whatever the hell you want on it. Say you won Wimbledon. Anyway, that's my short answer for that. Yeah, just a little self-awareness,
Jimmy Connors, I'm sure that he was so fortunate. At 16 years old, I believe he was. He goes out to California and he's hanging out with the two Panchos, mostly Pancho Seguro, but he's around Gonzalez and he's around Bobby Riggs. And I think the title of the book, There'll Never Be Another. It's like a 450-page book on Bobby Riggs. And Bobby Riggs. And then I got to really know Wayne Saban and Welby Van Horn, who played with those guys. I was 20 years old hanging out with 70-year-olds. But with Jimmy Connors, the greatest thing in life is to play tennis and win. The second greatest thing in life is to play tennis and lose. But what you just said, our listeners need to hear that. Do you only have fun? Do you only have fun when you win? Winning's a bonus. Winning's a bonus. I like to think, hey, you play 10 times, and so much anxiety now. There's a lot of dads who have money in the stock market. They don't even check on the stocks anymore. They just check on every kid's UTR, like who played this weekend and who won, who lost, and yet just way too much stress. And it's like Wimbledon juniors. It's like when Federer won that, and he was ushered off to play where he got a wild card. He actually played Carlin Navarro's brother. She went to Tennis Tech. Rodrigo won, but he was 10 years older. And but so Federer, he didn't want to leave Wimbledon. He wanted to go to the Wimbledon ball. He had the right because he won the junior title.
Yeah,
because he said to himself, he said to his inner circle, I don't know if I'll ever make it back. And just to get to the big show. I mean, I believe in my favorite sport, growing up, ice hockey. I think all the years, only 3,900 people have made it to the NHL. How many people have ever made it to Wimbledon? I mean, someone like, say, many students, say Austin Krajicek. Say, Austin, don't you pinch yourself still when you're playing Wimbledon? Don't you pinch yourself? And because it's just a marathon, and hats off to everybody who supports, especially the parents, for a kid to do that. But I think people, you got to know your level. And the opportunities that tennis is a gift or privilege just to get better every day. And I think now kids have no idea how far they are away from being a big time player, but they have so much access through YouTube and such.
Yeah. Well, the line I used to, and I probably shouldn't, but when I hear people whining about a match they just had, and I'm thinking, if it's that, as far as perspective, there's a million different levels, but go to the local hospital and go to the burn unit and tell me how important your match was today. It's like, you got to be kidding me. Just play, learn. The other line I love from Mandel is, you're either winning or learning. There's no losing. So anyway.
Oh, there's so many points to reflect. My son Connor, he got to the point where he had ATP points and was ranked 200 on the ATP tour. And, when the pros play each other, they don't even have to keep score. They know if they've lost their serve, especially on the men's side, but it's getting better on the women's side. They know if they've lost their serve, they're not doing well. But if you're going to play someone, once again, you're going to play all sorts of sets, and not to get so stressed out. Why don't you give us a few pearls there, Ivan, for our listeners?
Yeah, let me go through my notes here. Deliberate practice. Fix the boat before you put the sail up. It's never too late to do the right thing. Better off with no lessons and hit the backboard. So much bad information is going out so fast. 95% practice, 5% performance. Honesty is the best policy. If your work ethic doesn't match your expectations, you'll be left with disappointments. Compassion and empathy. If every time you're on the court, you're with a paid professional, you won't be any good. It's only fun proportionally to your competence. Who won more break points won the set. Structure and discipline. With structure, you have freedom. With chaos, you have no freedom. Don't be a muck-up. You can learn from everybody. Not coming to the net and volleying is like playing volleyball and not spiking.
That's my favorite.
So true.
Don't let a 2-ounce ball push you around. Winning is a bonus, and you're either winning or learning.
Yeah, how's it go? If you're not growing, Lou Holtz, if you're not growing, you're dying. You can't flatline. Yeah. If you're not improving, a lot of times young people, they don't understand. We go with the skills test. We say brawn versus brain. So the 18-year-old boy can beat the 14-year-old boy. And if the 14-year-old boy is really good, the 18-year-old boy is generally threatened and they don't even play. And the 18-year-old boy is not clever enough. Say, I'm going to play, we'll take a little pace off of it and just come in and angle volleys off. But then we put him through a skills test, and the 14-year-old, he can hit the targets. It's just all scoreboard. But,
well, that's one thing, Steve, I love. And I love that, if you get down to it, and I won't make you go long-winded, but why did you ever have to come up with the skills test, or the tie break test? it's for people to really be self-aware. I mean, you think you're a player, but you can't hit targets. So that's a whole other conversation. But the other line I love, guys, about tennis, I don't know where I stole it, but at some point, if you're out in the middle of a huge body of water, some huge lake, in a canoe by yourself, and your canoe tips over, you have to become an active participant in your own rescue. And to me, that's the beauty of tennis on the court. You can't call a timeout and yell for a sub. That should be the fun of it. And if you just flounder around and you don't know how to tread water, swim, it's not going to go too well. So, having said that, I'm not a great swimmer, so that's just a line. But anyway,
no, you say so many things that just make you stop and think. Going back to an idea, the skills test. Van der Meer used to have people. He'd put a target and say, okay, and say, for example, I'm feeding balls to you. You're hitting forehand volleys, and there's a target. And
was it 10 balls?
Yeah, Yvonne takes the 10 balls, and people aren't even close. With one time, it was a pro tournament in Indiana, and they had some problems with rain, and there was TV involved, and they got Vic Braden to come down, and they thought Vic would ham it up and make everybody laugh. Right. So they had the pros hitting the targets, and they had Vic Braden hitting targets, and Vic was better than the pros because
there you go.
They were just feeding the ball right to Fat Albert. He was nailing it. He just he was lifting it high and deep, and that bombed because remember Feedback was one of the players, who was a Polish player, top 10 in the world, and Rantes was there. He won the U.S. Open. But anyway, the skills test, one of my first jobs where I was actually paid, All-American Sports, Deerfield Academy. I think everybody should be a volunteer for at least 3 years before they accept a penny. So I'm feeding balls, and I just felt like an auctioneer. It's a forehand cross court. It's a backhand cross court. Now I'm playing approach shot. Right. But at the program you went through, we actually took that one drill and ran it for a week. And we would take Lair's idea how to wait in line. Holding the racket up, looking straight ahead. How do kids wait in line? They're looking all over the place.
Sure.
We went through breathing. We went through different ways to do it as a tournament. Just so many different things. Doing it with your opposite hand. Yeah. But we have kids visit. They're top 10 in their state, their province, even nationally. They're ranked quite high. And that comes back to the crummy versus crummier. Who wins? Crummy wins, but they don't know they're crummier. And that's right. In other sports, hey, that kid's, the kid who's in the canoe and they're a basketball player, they can't put the basketball in the water. They can't hit the side of a barn. But anything that could be measured can be improved. I do think with that comment, you alluded to it, was that the goal should be measurable and attainable. They need to be realistic. And you're not going to go from, I love your idea about adults taking time to practice, take lessons for a year, and then we'll get you in that, even could be a pre 3.0 league, but you're not going to take one lesson and get in a league. You're going to get stuck in the mud.
No, and they need to know that before they even get started. I mean, if I go to take a piano lesson, I'm not expecting to play a concert next week. I mean, that's a little out of whack. But the other line I love too is, just quickly, I had a guy come out a while back, and I, a smart guy, and I was asking him, if I put out a target and have you try to, hit balls, how close do you think you should generally be to it? And the guy said, probably within 4 feet all the time. I just laughed out loud, which I could because the guy, had a sense of humor, and he had it's the old deal. They have no idea. They have no idea. So you can't blame them for that. They need to be clued in, and that's our job. So, but anyway, Steve, I could talk to you and Yvonne all night long. I don't want to chew up your whole night, but really appreciate just even talking to you guys. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate all that you guys do and have done and will continue to do. So, and Steve, I'll give you a call offline again down the road. We can get a few laughs in, but so appreciate everything you guys do. Just want to let you know that for sure.
No, Mike, thank you. It's great we did this. I know the listeners, as you said, our echo chamber, we do have some listeners like yourself that, they just want another dose of medicine. It's good to hear some tennis logic. Hopefully some people have listened for the first time, and this will entice them to go to our website and do the 5 courses we have, and start to spend a few minutes every day with a few of the videos we have.
And Yeah, and if you don't mind, Steve, just a quick shout out to one or two people I know that I've encouraged to listen to this. That would be Robin, Allie, and Chuck. Please take a listen to these podcasts. You guys put a lot of time into them, and they're wonderful. So keep up the good work, guys. Hope I didn't bore anyone to death. And Yvonne, hopefully not too much cussing to have to edit out. So I appreciate it.
All right, Mike. Thank you, and have a good night.
All right, guys. You do the same. Thanks again, guys.
Yeah, adios.
All right, take care.
I really enjoyed that, listeners. Lots of one-liners, lots of analogies. Makes you just stop and think. But I want to get a closing comment from the kid from California. Well, you're not a kid anymore. You're an old man, 25 years old.
Old man.
Old man on the mountain.
I like one of the last comments you guys made is you're either winning or learning. You know, it's perspective, like how you look at the world, how you look at the game, circling back to self-reflection. Why do you play? You know, if you're only having fun when you're winning, you're not playing the game the right way.
So much feedback for me. I would say practice. You know, read his flyer and said, you know, take this course. You know, come to this weekly or bi-weekly clinic, and plan on playing well. Playing respectable tennis at the end of 1 year, not the end of the year, one lesson, 1 week, 1 month. But Mike Custer, thank you very, very much. Listeners, thank you. How do we say 220 in the books? Adios, amigos.
Thank you.
Till next time.